He breathes heavily, leaning on his sword and sitting on the rocky ground after the fight. He looks worried and tense, sweat dripping down his face, and fresh scratches are visible on his forehead. With a weapon in his hands, he notices 3 vicious creatures approaching with glowing eyes and sharp teeth. With a sword in his hands, he says that he is not allowed to rest, standing in front of 2 demons with horns. In the image, 2 dragons fight, causing destruction and explosions around them. He stands with a sword, looking up at the roaring dragon, which falls down with a crash, scattering stones around. He abruptly steps on the ground, accompanying the action with a loud sound, and reflects on the fact that he is perceived as an old man. The monster grabbed a woman who asks to let her go, and the boy watches from his knees. In tears and blood, she begs to stop, clutching her head in her hands. He lies in blood, with his eyes wide open, in tears, surrounded by a red background and the sounds of a blow. A woman screams for help, clutched in the clutches of a monster, and a boy sits nearby, watching what is happening. He cries and looks up as a terrible, clawed hand looms over him. A rain of monsters fell from the dark sky to the ground, including winged creatures and creepy creatures with horns. A tentacled monster lifts a man, while other monsters surround and threaten 2 captives in a ruined city. He stands in blood and tears in the rain, surrounded by tentacles and a face with red eyes that has taken everything from him. A huge creature with a red eye and tentacles moves abruptly, causing small objects to fly around. A warrior in armor with a sword kneels in front of a wounded boy, preparing to attack or defend in a tense scene. He recalls the moment when he was on the verge of death, surrounded by dark tentacles. In armor with a high tail, he stands with his back, illuminated by a bright light that creates an atmosphere of determination and strength. He is on his knees, covered in blood, in front of a man in armor who silently looks down on him. He smiles and says something with confidence, illuminated by a bright light. He cries, covered in dirt and tears, as if experiencing severe pain or loss. He swiftly attacks the dinosaur, delivering a powerful blow that destroys the ground around him. He looks tensely ahead, sweats, and seems ready for a serious battle or test. He fights a green monster that tries to bite him while he holds a weapon and fights for his life. It violently attacks the green monster, shouting a curse while the creature makes a loud sound of pain. He stands in armor, covered in mud and blood, with an expression of shock and fatigue on his face. He holds the wounded in armor, surrounded by the bodies of the fallen, and painfully realizes the severity of what has happened. He screams in grief as he holds the lifeless body of a woman in his arms amid the destruction and dead around him. He breathes heavily, leaning on his sword, and says that it is killing him, surrounded by the remains of the defeated dragon in the cave. He, covered in sweat and wounds, says that his body is almost giving up. He tensely holds on to his sword, preparing for the upcoming battle, while the sounds of an approaching threat are heard around him. He stands in front of a huge dragon with cracked skin, preparing for battle. The monster spews a powerful fiery stream from its mouth, accompanied by a loud growl. He, leaning on his sword, sighs heavily, showing fatigue and relief after a tense moment. With a tired smile, he admits that he has big problems. The image shows the sky with bright clouds at sunset. The characters are missing. He stands on top of a huge dead dragon with a light-lit sword after successfully completing the ancient dragon's nest dungeon. He breathes heavily while leaning on his sword and expresses irritation with the word, "Jeez." Shin Sang-gyun exclaims in fury that he is almost 60 and it is hard for him. He stands by the cliff, sword in hand, against the backdrop of the sunset, and thinks that 30 years have passed since he became a swordsman. He looks back with surprise and anxiety, as if he heard or noticed something behind him against the background of a bright light. He stands in front of a glowing magical tome that hovers above the ground in a cave. He suddenly noticed something and reacted in surprise. He holds a book, and another with cloaked glasses rises in a whirlwind of energy, creating a magical portal. A late student sincerely blesses for diligence and praises for a flawless finishing stroke. He smiles as he holds a glowing magic volume in his hands, while another cloaked man kneels in front of him. He silently looks at the cloaked guy with a book appearing in a cloud of magic next to him. He said about level 850 in surprise, sweating and smiling slightly. He laughs wearily as he holds the book while it glows behind him in its hood. He smiles and concentrates a powerful glowing energy in his hand, preparing to attack or cast a spell against the sunset sky. He can hardly breathe and wipes his mouth with a rag, standing by a frying pan with a burning fire and roasting meat. He looks anxiously at the smoking object with jewelry and thinks that it is not much. He looks anxiously at the glowing blue orb emanating from his hands and tries to understand what is happening. He summons a magic book surrounded by glowing blue energies. He is breathing heavily and looks tired, with a sweat on his face and a wound on his forehead. He is holding a closed book with a purple stone on the cover, around which white ribbons of energy are swirling. He asked irritably if there was anything, and she was surprised and said that it could not be a skill book. In a hooded robe and glasses, he looks forward in surprise, holding a suitcase in his hands. He says that there is a lot of time, but we need to compromise and start synchronizing mana again. He shouts with tension and tears in his eyes, asking how much time is left. He looks at the object in his hands with surprise and anxiety, trying to understand its meaning. He sat down tiredly, and she, floating in the air, said that he had to move on despite his fatigue. She suddenly noticed something and reacted in surprise. He stands with his back to him, dressed in armor with a cross, and looks at the bright light as if preparing for an important event. He, dirty and sitting on his knees, says that he tried to become like him, standing in front of him in armor. The image shows a man in armor with a leather belt on his shoulder, standing in a lighted area. Wearing a hood and large glasses, he is intently reading a book against the background of bright light. He says that he is terminating the contract and advises him to contact another player, while a purple glow appears around him. He watches in amazement as she holds a book, creating a powerful glowing spell in front of him. He utters the name Sea Constellation in amazement, surrounded by a mystical purple glow and liquid substance. He uses magic to create a glowing barrier through which dark liquid seeps through. The image shows a late-blooming student using an essence that had previously been experimented with. The image shows the word regression against a background of blue light and sparks, creating an atmosphere of return or repetition. The image shows glowing blue shards and blurry words on a dark background, creating an atmosphere of mystery and technology. He, a journalist named Park Jong-min, smiles and holds a piece of paper, introducing himself as a reporter for the player G. She smiles and says that there is no need to worry, because she has everything under control. She explains that these are other dimensions as he carefully reads a note on a park bench. He says with a smile that he hasn't watched this series for a long time while he is sharpening his knife. He holds a knife and admits that he is still confused. He woke up in the room and exclaimed in surprise. The young man looks anxiously at his hand, and the man standing behind him is worried and watches his reaction. He uses magic to create a luminous circle surrounded by a dark, viscous substance. He threw away his sword with a smile and said that he didn't care. He tightly grips the hilt of his sword with an ornate guard, preparing for action. He concentrates on summoning magical energy, summoning a glowing sword in his hands. He looks down with a confident smile, surrounded by bright blue light and sparks. The mana began to synchronize with Venomith's dagger, accompanied by light effects and magical symbols. He stands on the blue glowing floor, surrounded by mystical energy, radiating calm and strength in the dark space. The image shows the inscription, "Entering the Gap of Unconsciousness," on a dark background with a golden border. He smiles and says something confidently against the background of shining light and dark sky. He looks in surprise at the shining fried chicken that suddenly appeared on a tray in front of him. He looks in surprise at the shining fried chicken on the table in front of him. The image shows appetizingly cooked roasted chicken with herbs and vegetables, shining and exuding aroma. He smiles and says that this is a common dish. He begins to absorb Venomith's dagger while taking a large bite of the chicken. A message appeared that a hidden ability called Demon Bash had been obtained. The sword begins to crumble into pieces, surrounded by shining particles on a blue background. The text states that the dagger of Venomith, completely absorbed, will now disappear forever. He breathed a sigh of relief as he sat on the bed and stared at the holographic screen in front of him. He turned and smiled, as if about to say something as he sat in a room with a desk in the background. A group of people watched the appearance of a large glowing portal in the middle of the street, attracting the attention of passers-by and security. A man in a blue uniform calls the name of the team leader Yoon Daek-young, who is intently looking at the tablet in his hands. He explained that his name was Shin Sang-hyun, and the other assured him not to worry about him. He anxiously explains the situation, raising his hand and sweating with excitement. He speaks confidently in armor, and the other reacts to his words with surprise and fear. He puts on his armor with an effort, and the other shouts that it's time to leave, warning of impending danger. He in armor leaned menacingly towards the other, who stepped back in fright. He smirks at the frightened man, who is sweating and looking at him anxiously. He nervously rubs his neck as two armored knights exchange a document against the bright sky. The man in armor says that he also thinks this is unexpected, and the other listens to him, holding a tablet in his hands. He smiles confidently and exhales steam, as if preparing for an important event. The two knights taunt the rookie, calling him a level 1 idiot, and he silently watches them with a sword on his back. He smiles and says that he is a player. The three men are concentrating on a plan of action, looking intensely ahead. He and the other armored man smile and look at each other, letting out a quiet laugh. He stands with a sword on his shoulder, surrounded by dark figures with red eyes, and looks a little tense. The armored warrior greets Sang-hyun happily and says that he is glad to meet him. He smiles and says that nothing is impossible in this world. He smiles, scratching his head, and holds a sword that hangs on his belt behind him. A man in armor smiles and greets the other, who responds enthusiastically, raising his fist for a blow. One armored man grabbed the other by the shoulder with a smile, who calmly looks to the side, showing no emotion. A warrior in armor happily raises his fist, supported by a group of fighters, and another man stands next to him, calmly watching. Three characters watch a huge, sparkling blue vortex with mysterious symbols emanating in front of them. A group of warriors prepare to enter, and one of them orders them to remain ready at the entrance after infiltrating. One of the warriors wondered how much he would kill today, and the other replied that he would definitely kill more than him. He stands with his eyes closed, and the man in armor looks at him with a serious expression on his face. He stands silently next to the other, both surrounded by falling petals and mist. He holds his sword with a serious expression on his face and looks intently ahead, preparing for the upcoming event. He stands with a sword on his back and confidently looks forward, preparing for the upcoming test. Several bloody creatures with red eyes and axes prepare to attack in the dark, making ominous noises. He smiles maliciously and laughs quietly, clearly enjoying what is happening. He's in a panic and sweating, thinking to himself that this is stupid. A warrior in armor with a sword and shield stands alert, followed by three people in similar equipment, ready for battle. He lies on the floor, surrounded by destruction, and thinks that what is happening is crazy. Two fighters with painted bodies fight on the wooden floor. A large axe-like weapon lies nearby. He stands with a sword, surrounded by mystical light, in front of a huge warrior with spiked armor and an axe in his hand. He stands with his back to mystical light and smoke, and glowing symbols appear in the air. He stands with his back on display, showing powerful musculature and readiness for battle surrounded by sparks and darkness. The image shows a close-up of a sword hilt wrapped in cloth and tied to a belt, against a background of dark clothing and glowing sparks. Against the blazing sky, a red flag with a black symbol, decorated with skulls and chains, flutters, creating an atmosphere of threat and danger. On the battlefield, among the raised swords and axes, a banner with skulls and chains flutters against the background of an orange sky. A huge green hand lies on the ground next to a sharp sword and scattered stones. A dark creature with glowing eyes and green flashes is surrounded by an ominous aura in a gloomy atmosphere. He fights by brandishing a glowing sword in the darkness surrounded by sparks and debris. He walks forward with a sword in his hands against the background of fire, while another watches him from the shadows. He rushes into battle with excitement, expressing confidence and determination in his eyes. He receives a strong blow to the face, which catches him off guard and causes a sharp reaction. He tries to break free and asks to be released, but a huge green monster grabs him and lifts him into the air. The creature's dark eyes glow as it spews out a stream of blood and rage in a tense scene. The image shows the moment of a strong, bloody blow or explosion, accompanied by a dynamic effect and bright red flashes. A group of warriors in armor and armed with weapons walk through the castle's stone corridor, lit by torches, preparing for an upcoming battle or mission. He warns that if they do not leave now, they will die, and the other listens to his words with surprise. With a backpack, he notices a man in a long coat walking into the darkness and tries to attract his attention. He smiles and scratches his head, expressing slight embarrassment or embarrassment. The armored warrior speaks angrily, and the man with the weapon on his back listens attentively, while the third dark-armored man looks away. In armor, he warns another not to go any further, despite his willingness to fight with a sword on his back. A man in blue looks frightened at a huge green monster with an axe, which lets out a growl, and another watches what is happening. He was about to take care of the enemy, but was suddenly attacked from behind, which surprised him. It attacks with fury, emitting a vicious roar and delivering a powerful blow to the shield. He strikes sharply, accompanying the movement with a loud sound. He screams in a panic, expressing great excitement and fear. He in armor with a sword and shield rushes at the green monster while the other watches while the first one shouts a challenge. The image shows the moment of a strong blow with an axe flying downwards at high speed. He shouts with determination, preparing for battle in heavy armor. He sighed sharply, expressing great surprise or shock. He with a shield deflects the attack of a green monster, and the other watches the fight from behind. A warrior in armor with a shield strikes a powerful blow at the green creature, while the other watches in amazement. A warrior in armor shouts as the two men behind him walk through the tunnel, preparing for battle. The warrior orders the others to retreat and begins to fight himself, and one of them admires the event. With green skin and long hair, he confidently walks forward, holding a sword in his hand, preparing for the upcoming battle. The warrior deflects a powerful attack from a green-skinned creature, using a shield to defend against the blow. He violently attacks the green opponent, shouting that nothing is happening. The knight raises a sword with a green liquid, preparing to fight the huge monster that smiles at him maliciously. A man with black hair and another with blonde hair happily report that he has pierced his heart, and the people around them smile and support them. An evil orc with red eyes and fangs smiles maliciously, radiating threat and strength. The knight repels the attack of a green monster with an axe, preparing for battle. He delivers a powerful blow to the enemy, who furiously responds with an attack, destroying the ground around them. The warrior deflects a powerful attack from the green monster with his shield, creating a bright explosion from the collision. In armor, he furiously attacks the enemy, delivering a powerful blow from top to bottom. It delivers a powerful sword strike, causing a bright flash and a loud sound, expressing pain or effort. The warrior kills the monster, and those watching say in shock that he killed it. He speaks with a grin and a drop of sweat on his face, expressing a mixture of confidence and tension. A group of 5 people move forward with excitement and determination, preparing for the upcoming event or battle. The knight shouted Ogar's name sharply as he tried to stop him, while the others watched in amazement. Several demons with furious faces rush down the corridor, making a loud sound as if preparing to attack. A red demon with a white beard and glowing eyes smiles maliciously, showing sharp fangs and an intimidating appearance. He grips the sharp-tipped metal weapon tightly as he prepares for action. In a panic, he reports that armored orcs have appeared, and the other 2 listen anxiously to his warning. He is armored and stares ahead in surprise and alarm, and the 2 men behind him express concern and tension. The 3 warriors are preparing for battle when they are approached by a group of vicious creatures with red eyes and weapons. A group of men angrily addresses Shin Sang-hyun, accusing him of being insane due to his actions. The armored warrior turns around abruptly, noticing the approach of the enemy with a sword, preparing to attack. The knight warns that they may die while standing with a sword in front of a group of people and a green creature in the tunnel. As he jumps, he plunges his sword into the ground, causing a powerful explosion and flying fragments. With 2 swords, he kills one of the red warriors, while the others approach him menacingly. The 3 armored warriors stare ahead with fear and anxiety, clearly facing an unexpected threat. He is holding a bloody sword and notices that the cut is not as clean as it could be. A window appears with Shin Sang-hyun's player information, showing his level, unique skill, number of artifacts eaten, health, mana, and experience. 3 red-skinned demons with glowing eyes smile maliciously, displaying sharp fangs and an intimidating appearance. 3 red demons with weapons attack furiously, shouting the name of Mokdo Ringkar. With a sword in his hands, he parries the enemy's attack and admits that he can be of a low level. He grips the handle of his weapon and says that he has enough experience. The red demon unleashes a powerful blow at another creature with horns, causing a fierce fight and screams. He swiftly delivers a powerful downward sword slash, creating a bright trail of energy and a sound effect. It deflects a powerful blow from a demon with a skull on its head, which emits a loud roar. He concentrates on preparing for the attack, asking the interlocutor if he knows anything important. He delivers a powerful sword blow to the red-eyed monster, causing blood to spurt from the wound. He and the other warrior react with fright and tension to what is happening, sweating and screaming in alarm. He fights, brandishing a bloody sword, and declares that the enemy is the last. With a sword in his hands, he prepares to attack a huge demon with red eyes and horns, which looms menacingly over him with a huge axe. It deals a powerful blow to the red-eyed and fang-eyed demon, causing a strong effect of movement and tension. He fights a demon wearing a helmet with horns, delivering a powerful blow while the blue-eyed creature watches the fight. The image shows a spectacular moment of impact or movement with a bright red sound or effect on a dark background. He delivers a powerful blow with his glowing sword to a huge demon with horns, causing a burst of energy and destruction. Someone stabbed into the wall with force, leaving a deep crack and a trail of blood. He screams in a panic, expressing great excitement and fear. A dark monster with horns and glowing eyes attacks swiftly, directing a blow towards the man with black hair. He turns sharply and delivers a powerful blow in dynamic movement. He said with a smile not to dramatize the situation. A demon with horns and glowing eyes activates the level 1 Demon Bash. Skill, expressing surprise. He stands with a weapon, preparing to attack, and the creature with horns and glowing eyes tenses up, preparing for battle. The image shows the description of the hidden skill Demon Bash, which slows the target, monster or human, for 2 seconds with a cooldown of 15 seconds against a single object. He says with a smile that don't underestimate his abilities, showing confidence and determination. In the image, a loud impact sound is heard, accompanied by a sudden movement, but the characters are not visible. The image shows the face of a fierce creature with its mouth wide open and sharp teeth, radiating aggression and threat. The image shows a hand sharply hitting or blocking a blow, accompanied by the effect of sound. The knights in the castle see a bloody creature burst out of the corpse, making a loud sound of pain. A knight in armor fights, delivering a powerful blow, and the people standing behind him watch with alarm what is happening. 3 warriors watch as one of them stands in front of a giant and many defeated enemies in the hallway of the castle. He stands with a sword stuck in the ground in front of a defeated armored knight, surrounded by smoke and a tense atmosphere. 3 warriors debate whether to ask someone what YouTube videos they watch, with one of them looking worried. He asked with a smile if they were all. A message appears on the screen, congratulating you on the level up. He carefully examines the data on the holographic screen, noticing something important. A message appears on the screen that the title F-rank title, Fearless Immature Puppy, was awarded for meeting the conditions. He thoughtfully examines the holographic screen with information, leaning on a large sword in his hand. A message appears on the screen, indicating that you have 1 unused bonus point to increase your statty. It adjusts the character's stats on the holographic screen, selecting options to improve dodge. A message appears on the screen that the player's luck has increased. He turns around with tension as the armored knight with a shield and his companions follow him down the corridor. He is in armor looking ahead anxiously, and several tense men are standing behind him. He laughs awkwardly and sweats, expressing mild embarrassment or nervousness. A warrior in armor points at a young man and shouts at him, expressing anger or demand. 2 armored warriors stare intently ahead, one of them clutching the hilt of his sword, expressing determination and tension. He plunges a huge sword into the ground, and a mystical aura begins to shine around him. He looks in surprise at the other, who is smiling and showing a sword as if offering help or a challenge. He in armor with a heavy sword lowered his head, expressing fatigue and inner struggle. The sword-wielding warrior shouts that he warned him, addressing the black-haired man who is standing in front of him. He is in great pain and breathing heavily, expressing suffering without words. He is in armor, and his companion with weapons are surprised by the appearance of a huge creature, while the man at the door warns of danger. He is wearing armor with tension, and the man standing behind him listens with fright and sweats. A group of armored warriors walks forward, and he stands to the side, watching them. He suddenly noticed something and expressed surprise. 3 armored warriors stand together, one of them saying that they must be ready for the upcoming battle. He stands with a sword among the bodies, and another in armor says that he cannot believe what happened while watching what is happening. He smiles broadly and looks very happy. The image shows a glowing red ball with rays of light emanating from the center, with no visible characters. After defeating hundreds of demonic orcs, he says that it is considered difficult to obtain, but not impossible. He is sitting on the floor with his arm bandaged, a wounded man is lying next to him, and another is leaning against the wall. Medical supplies and blood are scattered around. With blood on his face, he says something important, despite the fatigue and wounds. The one holding the red ball of light handed it to the other 2 standing opposite, surrounded by a mysterious blue light. He holds a glowing orb in his hand while 3 tired warriors rest against the wall, one of them lying on a stretcher. He stands with blood on his face and looks exhausted after the fight. A group of warriors stands in the hall in front of a huge, defeated monster, and a man with a sword turns to them, preparing for further actions. He smiles and speaks, holding the belt in his hand, as if inviting to action or explaining something important. He stands in armor, turned to the side, and his face is partially hidden by a shadow. 2 men with tense faces look at the third, who is standing in front of them with fright and a drop of sweat on his face. He holds a sword and says that if they want to fight, he is ready. The 2 in armor listen to him attentively at the castle wall. He turns back, as if about to say or do something. 2 armored men exclaim in surprise when they see the leader standing with his back to the other 2 figures in the dark room. He in armor points his finger and says something decisively, expressing the seriousness of the situation. He smiles and says something with confidence as he looks ahead. A warrior in armor walks forward, and his 3 escorts call out to him as a leader with alarm in their voices. He looks serious and tense, as if he is thinking about an important decision or preparing for a difficult conversation. He touches the wall with gloves on, carefully examining the surface. 3 armored warriors approach the castle's massive closed gates, preparing to enter. A warrior in armor looks intensely ahead, as if preparing for an upcoming battle or test. He stands with his back in armor and thinks in front of the wall, immersed in silence and tension. An inscription appears on the screen, informing that the character has entered the room of the middle boss. In a dark room with columns and torches, a loud sound can be heard, creating a tense atmosphere. A loud sound is heard in the hall of the castle, as if something suddenly happened or exploded. The image shows a bloodthirsty orc demon with horns and chains, designated as a medium boss. 3 armored knights are ready for battle, one of them staring intensely ahead, waiting for an attack. In armor, he speaks earnestly about the circle, preparing for battle against the dark sky and other warriors. A group of warriors rushes forward, one of them shouting for leadership, attacking the enemy with a shield. He lies in blood and says in surprise, "What?" A wounded armored knight asks what happened, and another man with a sword watches with his arms crossed. With a grin and slight irritation, he said, "Hey, talk? Swinging or swinging?" The armored man falls backwards from the blow of a huge blue creature with an axe, and the other 2 watch. A wounded warrior fights in pain, while another panicked tries to help as the 2 watch them from afar. A dark demon with fangs and a blindfold makes ominous sounds, surrounded by fog and chains. A wounded man in armor screams, and another with a weapon behind his back calmly watches him. He smiles with his eyes closed and his arms crossed over his chest, radiating confidence and joy. He swears, and the other listens with a tense expression, both in soiled armor after the fight. A warrior with an axe stands in the hall, and from his speech it follows that he is ready for battle or warns someone. A warrior with a sword has taken up defense, and the others, including the man at the wall, are preparing for a possible clash. A knight in armor with blood on his face says that he can no longer fight, and another man listens to him carefully. He is furious and with blood on his face, expressing determination as he prepares for the upcoming battle. He grips the hilt of his sword tightly, preparing for action. He confidently wields a huge sword, preparing for battle in a dark and tense atmosphere. The image shows a loud scream or sound expressed in red letters on a black background. He stands with a sword, preparing to attack, while a huge demon with an axe swings at him. He clutches a sword that radiates mystical energy, preparing for battle. It deflects a powerful blow from a creature with horns, creating a blast of energy. A blue demon with horns and fangs smiles, hiding his eyes under a blindfold, surrounded by darkness and fog. A knight in armor with a sword and shield covered in blood stands alert, and his two companions watch with alarm. He stands with a sword in front of a huge demon with horns and chains, preparing to fight it. A dark creature with chains holds a glowing red ball in its hands, making ominous sounds. He attacks the green orc with his sword, delivering a stunning blow for 2 seconds, and the orc cries out in pain. He repeatedly stuns the green monster, which tries to respond in confusion. He holds his sword confidently and prepares for battle, showing determination and strength. With horns and fangs, he says with a smile that his strength and authority are undeniable. The image shows the large red word, "Gray," on a black background, expressing a loud scream or growl. He stands with a sword, preparing to attack the demon with horns and a glowing red stone on his chest, who swings an axe. He looks forward with a confident smile, radiating determination and strength. He swiftly attacks the blue creature with chains, assuring that he will be able to find its weaknesses. The image shows the moment of a strong impact with a heavy axe on the ground, causing an explosion and flying fragments. The level 1 Demon Bash skill has been activated, demonstrating a powerful punch with bright energy. He prepares to attack the orc demon, which will be stunned for 2 seconds. He is in armor in shock and sweating, and the man standing behind him is silent, watching what is happening. He smiles and turns around as if about to say or do something. He is surprised to notice something accompanied by a sharp sound and a purple glow. He delivers a powerful sword strike at a chained creature surrounded by purple light and energy. The image shows a spectacular moment with a bright glowing symbol that emphasizes the tension or importance of what is happening. He thrusts his sword into the ground with force, causing a powerful explosion and destruction around him. He holds his sword with tension, sweating and looking intently ahead. The orc demon, with the power of self-healing, frees itself from the stun and clutches its baton, preparing for battle. With a smile and a drop of sweat on his face, he picks up a sword, preparing for the upcoming event. He decides that if he can't stun the enemy, he just has to defeat him. He stands with a sword, preparing to attack a huge dark monster that lets out a loud cry of pain. He delivers a powerful sword strike at the horned demon, causing an explosion and destruction all around. 2 knights watch as the third fights the dark creature, delivering a powerful blow accompanied by a loud sound. He, covered in blood, stands silently next to the wounded man, who speaks anxiously about the impossibility of surrendering. He jumps to the side, dodging the attack of a huge creature with a long tail, while noting a large difference in their stats. He smiles with confidence, surrounded by flying debris, as if preparing for an important event. He rushes forward swiftly, sword in hand, leaving traces of sparkling energy on the floor in his wake. He stands with a club, preparing to attack a huge demon with horns and chains, and above them appears an inscription about using the enemy's power for his own purposes. With determination in his eyes, he shouts, "Pierce!" and prepares to attack. The weapon is destroyed, and a message appears about defeating the middle boss, a demonic orc. He fights a huge blue monster in chains, piercing it with a sword, purple blood spurting from the wound. It falls to the ground, and a message appears indicating that the level is increasing. A message appears on the screen that you have earned the rank of Demon Hunter at rank E. He stands over the defeated monster, gaining a level boost and exhaling with relief. The title Demon Hunter appears on the screen with an E rank and a description that when fighting bosses, health regenerates 5 times faster. He smiles and looks at the data screen, expressing interest in what is happening. He stands with his back to him, and 3 armored warriors walk towards him, ready to talk or clash. He has blood on his face and a frightened look, and the other standing behind also looks anxious and sweating. He laughs awkwardly, sweating, as if trying to hide embarrassment or awkwardness in conversation. He laughs as he plunges his sword into the ground, and the 3 knights behind him are surprised and stunned by what is happening. He is surprised, asking if it is possible to damage this creature, and the other laughs back. With blood on his face, he says something important, causing tension in the moment. He stands with a sword, looking at the other, who is armored and covered in blood, preparing for a possible battle. He snorts with a slight grin, expressing dissatisfaction or disdain. A warrior in armor with blood on his face holds a glowing red orb, and the man standing behind him watches what is happening. He sweats and smiles with tension, as if hiding his true feelings. A wounded warrior in armor shouts and addresses another person, expressing determination or order. He doubts that the kid could defeat the creature alone and wishes to have the same stun skill. He smiles with confidence, exuding calmness and hidden strength. He watches a bright fireball that emits powerful energy and glows in the air. The image shows a rare artifact with health and strength effects, which can be obtained by defeating an orc demon and has a special delay effect. The image shows a spectacular break with the inscription, Gap of Unconsciousness, symbolizing loss of consciousness or memory lapse. He smiles despite the drop of sweat on his face, and a mysterious energy flickers around him. The image shows a shining golden dish with a mouth-watering Korean cold soup that highlights its special value and flavor. He looks at the golden bowl of food with a smile, holding chopsticks, and enjoys the moment surrounded by shining shadows. An inscription appears on the screen, informing that he is ready to absorb Crimson Stone. The image shows chopsticks holding a mouth-watering dish of noodles with meat against a background of shining golden light. A message appears on the screen that due to the 20% base absorption level of silver rank stats, strength and health are increased by 2. The image shows an hourglass symbol with the word delay written on it against a background of glowing energy waves. A message appears on the screen stating that the character has received a special delay effect. With a slight smile and a drop of sweat, he asks if the interlocutor is nervous. He says something with a smile, holding his hand close to his chest. A message appears on the screen that a delay effect has been added to Demon Bash, and an explanation of how it works when used before the first stun ends. The image shows text explaining the chances of the stun effect continuing on the 3rd, 4th, and 5th consecutive use. He crouched down beside his sword, surrounded by glowing lines and a dark atmosphere. He stares thoughtfully at the glowing screen and sweats slightly as he ponders important information. He crouched against the wall, reading the inscription, while another watched him from behind, holding a shield. He looks with a grin at the armored knight, who, sweating, seems worried and tense. He listens attentively and responds to someone's voice next to him. He, in bloody armor, stretches out his hand with a smile, as if offering help or inviting cooperation. He and the knight shake hands, expressing mutual respect after the battle. He is in armor explaining something to 2 men, one of whom is holding a sword and the other is listening attentively. He reacts to the situation with tension and irritation, expressing dissatisfaction with the sound "taiske." He speaks seriously, lost in thought, against a dark background. He stands with a weapon, watching the 2 armored fighters, one of whom is laughing despite the blood on his face and armor. A group of 8 people climb a stone staircase, heading towards the bright space ahead. In the dark, a loud hoarse sound of "Kirug" can be heard, surrounded by clouds of black smoke. In the darkness, through the black jets, you can see a huge ominous mouth with sharp teeth, creating an atmosphere of horror and threat. With patterns on his body, he kneels in front of a figure with a spiked weapon and a red glow, creating an atmosphere of a tense and gloomy scene. A group of warriors and a man in a suit stand in the castle, preparing for battle with approaching shadows with red eyes. The wounded warrior looks tensely forward, and a calm man watches him, as if assessing the situation. He silently walks forward, holding his sword, while the two behind express anxiety and tension. He took a deep breath, expressing relief or fatigue. He turns quickly, as if noticing something important or dangerous. A monster with red eyes and sharp teeth attacks furiously, swinging a heavy mace, causing destruction around. He stands with his back to the falling rocks against the dark lines that create a sense of speed and tension. He screamed in fright, and the man next to him stared intensely ahead, both with backpacks on their shoulders, as if preparing for danger. He timidly asks for a seat, and she replies that his level is too low while the others watch the conversation. It swiftly attacks the long-tongued creature, delivering a powerful blow accompanied by a bright flash of light and sound. The monster with glowing eyes lets out a piercing scream as it clutches a weapon in its hand as it prepares to attack. He concentrates on raising his weapon, preparing for an attack or defense. A group of knights, led by a leader in armor, rushes through the dark corridor of the castle, preparing for battle. With blood on his face and a tense expression, he experiences an internal conflict. He plunges his sword into the monster, tearing its body apart and causing an explosion of blood and energy. He shouts with determination, expressing strong emotions in a tense situation. He activated the level 1 Demon Bash skill. A group of armored warriors rush into battle, expressing determination and readiness to fight. It makes an eerie sound with its mouth wide open and glowing eyes, expressing rage or pain. In a rage, he delivers a powerful blow, surrounded by dark energy and red light, expressing aggression and strength. A message appears on the screen with congratulations for completing the dungeon, Altar of the Crimson Orc. On the ground lies a man tied up and shrouded in purple smoke with a distorted face from which his tongue sticks out. One of the warriors says he didn't use potions and asks if it was really that easy, addressing the other with a shield. He notices two men with backpacks, one nervous and the other trying to calm him down. He noted with a grin how quickly people change their minds. He is surprised when he receives a D-rank title with a 10% increase in status duration effect and feels his power skyrocket. He examines the holographic screen and notices that the stun lasts for 4.4 seconds, considering it too strong an effect. He raises a shining sword and calls it the Full Sword. He is determined to catch up with someone, and the man with the backpack behind him looks worried. He in armor listens intently as the other speaks confidently, sword in hand. He, wounded and in armor, with a smile shows a glowing amulet with the image of a wolf on the palm of his hand. He, wounded and in armor, can hardly hold on, while the other smiles and shows a glowing amulet as if promising help or strength. A wounded man in armor smiles, and another man answers him with a smile and a drop of sweat on his face. He smiles despite the blood on his face, expressing calm and confidence. He looks at the glowing amulet in his hand with a smile and says that this is a victory for him. He stands in armor and listens attentively to the interlocutor, preparing for an important conversation or decision. He thinks with tension about the fact that for a long time he was a servant of another person. A warrior in armor looks attentively at his phone, expressing seriousness and concentration. The image shows a building against a blue sky with clouds. Characters and dialogue are missing. He smiles broadly, expressing joy and positive mood. He presses the device with a smile, causing the bull ring on the table to glow. The image shows a description of a bronze artifact, a ring with a 10 power increase effect, which can only be obtained from berserker orcs. The image shows a gold ring with the image of a deer's head and a magical glow around it. The image shows the sound of a scream or sudden exclamation, conveying a tense or shocking situation. He looks with interest at the glowing skull ring lying on the table in front of him. The image shows a description of the special Lighten effect, which reduces the weight of all equipped artifacts to 1 gram at a cost of 1 mana per second. He looks thoughtfully at the ring on the table and thinks aloud about what it could mean. He concentrates on manipulating the magical energy around the artifact as she watches, book in hand, ready to help. He looks ahead in surprise, and she watches him from behind with a smile. He concentrates on controlling magical energy, creating a luminous circle around a golden ring with the image of a skull. An inscription appears on the screen about the beginning of mana synchronization with the Berserker's ring. He dismissively says that he doesn't care if there is a fine. He looks down with a determined smile, surrounded by light and rain, preparing for an important action. In the club, Several people are dancing and socializing, and a DJ in the background is preparing music for the party. He screams with alarm, and she calmly leans against him, causing him strong emotions. He anxiously holds a glass of drink, and she hugs him, smiling and showing affection. A man with a woman in his arms is laughing, while two others are sitting opposite, and another is standing at the table with many bottles and glasses. He laughs at someone, and she whispers that he looks like a complete loser. He was frightened and asked, "Yes?" when he was wounded in the head. He holds a glass of drink with a sinister smile and glowing eyes, creating a menacing image. He plunges a knife into the neck of another. Blood spurts from the wound. He screams in pain as a sharp object stabs into his head and blood spurts out of the wound. He holds an empty glass with a drop of liquid at the bottom with a grin, creating an ominous atmosphere. He walks alone through a park overlooking the city, surrounded by trees and benches. He holds a huge sword with surprise and tension, trying to understand its weight and strength. He sits on the steps, with his feet down and a long sword in his hands. He reacts with disgust to the oriental cold cucumber soup, which, according to the lyrics, would kill anyone who eats it. He holds a huge sword with a smile and is slightly worried. He sits on a bench and spins a huge metal object in the air with the power of his mind. He quickly grabbed the handle of the hammer, preparing for action. He is surprised to notice that the sword has become much lighter when holding it in his hands. The image shows a description of the lightweight effect, which is always active, has no cooldown, and reduces the weight of all artifacts to 100 grams with reduced power due to the penalty. He thoughtfully asks what would happen if he accidentally let go. He is interested in studying the information about the character on the holographic screen, holding a sword in his hands. She stands in the glow of the golden ornament, as if radiating power and light, surrounded by a mystical aura and majestic radiance. He stands with a large sword in his hand and calmly looks down, hiding his other hand behind his back. He stands with a sword in front of training dummies on a wooden platform near a traditional building. The wheel of the car hits the nail sharply, causing sparks and the sound of a puncture. He abruptly opened the car door, expressing anxiety and tension. He stretched tiredly, leaning against the car next to the huge sword, making a sound of displeasure. He stands by the car and looks at the bright blue portal that appears, making a loud sound. He smiles and says something calmly, standing against the night sky with falling snow. He looks attentively to the side, expressing determination and concentration. A black car suddenly hovers above the ground in the forest among trees and rocks under a blue sky with clouds. He stands by the car, holding a huge sword in his hand, and looks at it with thoughtfulness. He looks thoughtfully to the side, as if contemplating an important decision. He smiles and says the word end. It creates a huge blue energy portal that radiates power and light in a dark space. He stands with confidence, and two other men appear behind him, surrounded by electrical energy, creating a tense atmosphere. He looks away with a smile, surrounded by a mystical blue light. He stands with his back and looks into the darkness, as if waiting or listening to something. He carefully examines the small object in his hand, holding it between his fingers with concentration. He looks forward with confidence, smiling slightly, as if ready for the challenge ahead. 4 men with guns stand together. One of them asks with a grin if someone is an idiot. With a smile, he draws a sword from the stone, surrounded by blue light and stones. 4 men with weapons stand in front of a huge shadow with bright eyes and a huge sword, creating a tense and threatening atmosphere. 2 men with sinister smiles stand together, one holding a weapon, and they are clearly preparing for the coming conflict. He stands in the dark and the rain, holding his belt, and begins to speak. He stands with a bow in his hands and a quiver of arrows behind his back against the background of blue light. He was surprised and noticed something that caught his attention. He confidently holds his sword and smiles, preparing for the upcoming test. He shouts with a sword in his hand, and the other silently looks away, preparing for battle. With a wound on his face, he looks around and begins to speak. He says with alarm that he cannot believe what is happening. He stands with a sword and tells not to waste his time and not to attack him all at once. He smiles and begins to speak, but his words are not visible in the image. A man with a sword violently attacks the man with dark hair standing in front of him. He looks forward confidently, surrounded by dynamic lines that emphasize his determination and strength. He, covered in blood and wounds, looks intensely to the side as if preparing for the next test. He knelt down, covered in blood and mud, a sword lying beside him, and stones and dust flying around him. He lies with his mouth open, covered in blood and shadows, as if after a violent confrontation or injury. The image shows the inscription in red on a dark background. You have to kill if... 3 people with serious faces are looking ahead, and one of them is saying something important and tense. He concentrates on clutching his weapon, preparing for action against the rocky landscape. 2 men with weapons are standing opposite each other, a broken wall and traces of blood between them. He resolutely says that he is not going to give up and is ready to fight to the end. 3 men with weapons are fighting swiftly in the ruined room, one of them with purple hair and a scar on his face moving forward. He sharply dodges the blow, concentrating on the opponent. He and she run swiftly, preparing for a fight, expressing determination and tension. He tensely draws the string of the bow, preparing to shoot in a critical situation. He stares intensely ahead, a drop of sweat running down his face, expressing anxiety and determination. He stands, spinning the weapon with powerful energy, creating a vortex, and asks where to go next. He receives 2 blows to the chest and falls backwards, holding a long weapon in his hands. He concentrates on preparing for the attack, his eyes shining with determination against the dynamic lines of movement. The image shows broken arrows flying in the air, giving the feeling of a sudden and powerful impact. He stares tensely at the arrows that hit his glasses and considers what is happening to be madness. The image shows the moment of a strong impact with blood splattering and a sound effect. He turned around abruptly in surprise when a huge blurry object was rapidly flying in his direction. He looks away with tension and anxiety, a drop of sweat dripping down his face. He looks ahead in horror, expressing great shock and fear. 2 men rush towards each other, preparing for a clash in an intense battle. He admits with a smile that he is too excited, moving at high speed. The blue-haired warrior attacks furiously with his sword, and the red-haired man watches him warily. He abruptly draws his sword from its scabbard, accompanying the action with the sounds of a blow. He lies on the ground with blood on his face, and a huge bloody sword stands next to him. The 4 of them fall swiftly down, preparing for a collision, one of them holding a sword and the other raising his hand forward. He abruptly grabs the hilt of a huge hammer, preparing for a powerful blow. He shouts, "Just die!" to his opponents, attacking them with a sword, while 2 enemies rush at him. It shatters the earth and rocks with a powerful sword blow, causing an explosion and a release of blood. He says with tension and determination that he will not allow anyone to interfere with him. He fights a red-haired opponent and says that the situation was dangerous, barely dodging a sword strike. He fights by attacking the opponent with his sword, while rocks fly around them. The image shows the moment of a strong impact, accompanied by a splatter of blood, with no visible characters. He is surprised to feel someone grab his head sharply, causing tension and anxiety. He struck the other sharply in the face, causing him to look in pain and surprise. 2 characters fall in the dark, their movements accompanied by sound effects. He plunges his sword into his opponent, piercing through him, and blood spurts from the wound. He grabbed the other by the head with such force that blood flowed from the wounds, and he screamed in pain. With a sword in his hand, he abruptly lands in front of the purple-haired man, preparing to attack. He says something with a sly smile, looking ahead with bright blue eyes. He rushes furiously with a knife, preparing to strike. He says he was just asking, expressing doubt or justification. The level 1 Demon Bash skill was activated, demonstrating a powerful punch with purple energy. He menacingly points a sword with a purple glow at the other, who stands still, despite the 2 bloody swords at his feet. A message is shown on the screen, stating that the player is stunned for 4.4 seconds. He clenches his teeth tensely and sweats, feeling a strong internal tension. He squeezes the head of the other with force, blood gushing out of his fingers, and the victim's eyes are wide in horror. He stands in the dark with a tense expression and thinks that he does not understand what the other person is talking about. He is terrified and tense, with beads of sweat on his face, feeling intense fear or shock. 3 men support each other before an important event. One says that they can do anything with them. The other encourages them to do everything possible. He is covered in blood and sweat, with an expression of horror and despair on his face, trembling and screaming with fear. He threatens a sitting wounded man, who begs not to kill and promises to follow any orders. With a wound on his face, he breathes heavily and warns the other about something dangerous. He kneels down on the ground and carefully wipes the blood from the large sword. He knelt down, breathing heavily and clutching the sword in his hand. The image shows shining weapons and bows, as if preparing for battle or a show of strength. He takes off his coat in preparation for action or conversation. He studies his game characteristics on a holographic screen and looks a bit tense. He looks at the screen with a smile and touches his chin thoughtfully. He buttons his shirt and puts on his jacket, preparing for an important event. He carefully takes the glowing ring out of his pocket. He shouts furiously, trying to attack, and the other smiles carefully at the glowing stone in his hand. With a grin and a drop of sweat on his face, he says that you shouldn't hope too much for something. Mana begins to synchronize with the Ring of Restoration, accompanied by bright light and energy around. The four goblins walk along the tracks to the dungeon, carrying bags and weapons, heading along the inner road of dungeon number 101. The orc is angry and grins, expressing rage without words. He prepares to attack with a sword, and the two orcs look warily in his direction, waiting for action. He stands with a large sword, preparing to fight in a dark room. He says with tension that what is happening is crazy. Three goblins with weapons and bags walk along the tracks in a dark tunnel. One of them looks back warily. He holds a gleaming sword that makes sounds as if preparing for battle. A green creature with sharp teeth and a long tongue makes a sound to express aggression or threat. He was holding his sword when he suddenly noticed something and expressed surprise. He turned his head sharply, expressing determination and tension in the moment. He stands with a sword, surrounded by glowing circles and energy in a dark space. The image shows splashes and circles on the surface of the water from falling droplets in a dark space. He stands in the dark with his eyes closed, blue energy pulsating around him, creating an atmosphere of intense preparation for battle. He soars in the dark with two swords, surrounded by glowing water splashes and the effect of the word OK. He concentrates on holding a large sword, preparing for a fight or an important action. The green monster furiously swings its club, preparing to strike. He swiftly slices through several green creatures with his sword, leaving a trail of blood and destruction in his wake. He stands with two swords, fending off the attacks of green creatures that fall around him, and blood and lightning fill the space. He smiles with blood on his face and clothes, showing confidence and schadenfreude in a tense situation. The image shows a powerful energy projectile flying rapidly forward with the effect of speed and explosion. He abruptly dodges the blow, holding a sword in his hands, and reacts to the unexpected attack. He strikes swiftly, releasing an arrow with great force and speed. Someone in a glove jerks on a cane, making a twang sound. He stands in the dark, holding a long object, and feels the tension emanating from the bright light behind him. A green warrior with a bow and arrows prepares to attack, expressing rage and determinations. He stands with a sword in the shaft with the bodies, and the greenskin watches him from the water near the rails, feeling the tension before a possible attack. He stands with his back to him, holding his sword, preparing to fight in the dark space. He holds a knife with a smile, preparing for action. A crowd of orcs rushes forward furiously with weapons, emitting a battle cry. Several orcs violently attack the glowing creature, which makes a growling sound, deflecting the blow. He fights off a horde of monsters, delivering powerful blows and causing them to fly away with blood. He is blindfolded, smiling as he is attacked with a sword and blood is flying around. He stands on the rails with weapons, wounded goblins fly around, blood scatters, and you can feel the tense atmosphere of the battle. He is in a panic and screams, sweating heavily and expressing horror on his face. The image shows a bloody blade with dripping blood against a background of smoke and dust. He stands with a sword in his hand in the middle of the scattered body parts of green creatures against a dark red background. Several soldiers cut to pieces fall in the air against the background of a bloody sky, and an axe hovers nearby. He takes off his jacket with a smile, showing that he is ready for action despite the bloodstains on his clothes and body. The image shows the description of the title, Lucky Day, with rank D and the effect of increasing luck by 20, as well as the additional effect of increasing luck when defeating the same monsters. He stands in the shadows, smiling, as two axe-wielding goblins sneak up on him from the dark hallway. A green monster with sharp teeth and earrings looks vicious and tense, as if it is going to say or do something. A green character with a large bag on his back stares intensely at the approaching zombies, feeling threatened and sweating from fear. He stands with a smile with a sword on his back, and a frightened green creature trembles and sweats in front of him. He stands with his back, clutching an object in his hand, and there is tension around him. He laughs, showing the blood on his shirt and expressing confidence in his words. He stands with a sword in front of a brightly glowing rift in the wall, preparing for the upcoming event. He stands in the dark, red lightning flashes around him, and he begins to talk about life. An inscription appears on the screen, warning that 3 constellations have come for him. In a white robe with a staff, he stands in front of a huge monster with wings and many eyes, surrounded by mystical symbols in outer space. He stands by the train tracks and looks at a woman with long purple hair in a white dress hovering in front of him. He looks at the 3 celestials that have appeared, a mysterious one in white, a floating woman, and a huge monster with many eyes. He smiles with wounds on his face and says that everything will be fine, despite the difficulties. He, covered in blood, begins to laugh and asks a question. She looks at him with determination, and he, grabbing him by the neck, tries to understand her intentions. He looks intensely ahead, sweating and touching his collar as if preparing for a difficult situation. The goddess of luck shows interest in the hero, smiling and folding her hands in a prayer gesture. He scratched his head embarrassedly and smiled, and she looked at him with interest, continuing the conversation. He sweats slightly and smiles discreetly, as if trying to hide his true feelings. Corrupt Cleaner praises Hidden Cruelty. A mysterious character in a white robe with a staff says that a pilgrim wandering through the universe is interested in the hidden nature of the interlocutor. He stands with a sword, watching a smiling woman with purple hair and a strange pink creature next to her. She exclaimed in surprise when she saw the creature, and he silently held his staff, watching what was happening. He was surprised to see a girl with purple hair surrounded by a mysterious light. He smiles, showing part of his face and neck with dirt or bloodstains on his clothes. He stands in the glow of light, clad in armor, and is called the Miracle Shooter. She smiles and looks forward, radiating calm and confidence. He laughs and scratches his head, standing next to the train tracks in the dark. He with spikes and she with long hair are standing next to each other, and someone expresses surprise or shock. 3 celestials demand that a mortal make a fateful decision, and one of them doubts the correctness of the person's assessment. He exclaims that these celestials, he holds back the pain by clenching his teeth despite the wounds on his neck and shirt. He leans on his sword, sitting on his knee in a dark room, preparing for the upcoming battle. He knelt with his sword, and she, appearing from the portal, stretched out her hand, offering help or challenge. He enthusiastically shouts, "Forward, Zai!" Swing, and she rejoices and raises her fists in support. He said wearily that it was time to go, and she watched him anxiously against the dark waves. A message appears on the screen, stating that after reaching level 850, all effects of artifacts and titles are doubled. He concentrates on creating a powerful magic spell surrounded by glowing energy rings and radiance. He stands with a sword, surrounded by multicolored magical streams, ready for battle or defense. A mysterious character in a white robe with gold jewelry stands, holding a staff, against a background of shining light and stars. The image shows a creature with many eyes and sharp teeth, accompanied by a question about destructive power. She smiles and radiates confidence, surrounded by radiance and a magical aura. It is reported that a contract was signed with the Heavenly Goddess of Luck. He made a contract with the Heavenly Goddess of Luck, and she reacted in surprise to this event. The image shows a warning that the contract remains valid for 30 years, even if the player dies. The presence from the dimension carefully observes the contract between Shin Sang-yun and the Goddess of Luck. The image shows a message in which 15 friendly celestials congratulate on the conclusion of the contract and wish success. He asks in surprise what this phenomenon is, looking at the glowing figure with purple hair that is holding his hand. He smiles and says something confidently, holding his gloved hand to his face. He reaches out to the floating woman with purple hair, saying that from now on, everything will change. She gently holds the hand of another person, radiating light and calmness, as if giving support and confidence at this moment. He turns around with a smile and says something, accompanying the words with a glowing effect next to him. He looks in surprise at the floating girl with purple hair, who confidently demonstrates her abilities and offers to fulfill a wish. He looks thoughtfully at the holographic screens, and she explains something with a slight smile as she stands next to her sword. The goddess of luck asks what he will do with the suggestions of the other celestials, surrounded by them in a tense atmosphere. He stands with a sword, a glowing spirit hovers nearby, and a monster with a huge head appears in front of them on the train tracks. He is surprised with a smile, and she happily stretches out her hands. He asks if she really loves him so much. The image shows a red curtain with a metal skull decoration with red eyes on a wall background. The two fight in fierce combat, delivering powerful blows accompanied by light effects and bursts of energy. She looks forward in surprise, clasping her hands to her chest, and it seems that something has suddenly happened. He attacks sharply, swinging his weapon at an enemy with red hair, preparing for a powerful blow from above. He fights a monster, their swords colliding with sparks and a powerful blow. A monster with sharp teeth and an evil expression on his face prepares to attack, clutching a spiked weapon in his hand. An inscription appears on the screen, announcing the final boss, the greedy Goblin Lord. He deals a powerful blow to the enemy, who screams in pain and flies back. A dark creature with glowing red eyes makes an ominous sound, expressing rage and threat. He suddenly noticed something dangerous and reacted in surprise. With a grin and a bead of sweat on his face, he looks tense and a little crazy. The image shows a vicious creature with a glowing red eye and sharp teeth, emitting sinister energy. He stands with a sword against a background of bright red light, creating a tense and ominous atmosphere. He gritted his teeth and sweats as he thinks about recovery. The image shows the moment of impact, accompanied by a large sound effect, and part of the figure with red hair on the right. The image shows a powerful explosion, flying stones, and dynamic lines that convey the force of impact or destruction. A monster with red hair and sharp teeth looks angry, preparing to attack. He explains that movement is not completely blocked while the sword collides with the armor. He fights, noticing that his strength is only good against small groups of enemies. The image shows the moment of a bright energy explosion, with the effect of light and sound, conveying the intensity of the action taking place. With a bright look and a smile, he says something with confidence, surrounded by glowing sparks. The image shows a sharp movement of the hand against a background of red light, creating a sense of tension and surprise. A monster with sharp teeth and red spikes on its head expresses schadenfreude and tension at the moment of conflict. Goblin Lord strikes, causing a state of intimidation in the opponent, who says, "Double C!" He falls from a height and asks if the other person thinks it will work again. The Demon Bash skill is activated, and the red-haired creature lets out a loud scream. The Goblin Lord is stunned for 2 seconds and is unable to act. He fights back sharply, creating an energy shield around him that deflects the attack. He fights the red-haired creature with powerful sword strikes that cause blood to fly and screams to be heard. The image shows a delay effect that extends the stun by 2 seconds, and a red-haired creature experiences this effect. He abruptly deflects an attack aimed at him with his clawed hands, surrounded by a purple glow. He sharply rebuffs the attack, accompanied by the sound of a blow and a splash of blood. It deals a powerful sword slash, causing bleed, and the effect is activated with a 90% chance to prolong stun. He smirks at the frightened, sharp-toothed creature that is breathing heavily and sweating in fear. He is clad in heavy armor with skulls, clutching a sword, preparing for battle, and another character stands behind him, holding a weapon. He stands in suspense, surrounded by dark energy, as if preparing for battle or using the force. With a sword, he prepares to attack an enemy with red hair and a shield, who rushes forward in a cave with bones around him. A message appears on the screen, with congratulations for completing the dungeon, Suffocating Goblin Swamp. He sighed heavily, visibly tired and covered with wounds, expressing relief. Shin Sang-hyun fights, gains a level up, and demonstrates his game characteristics against the background of a defeated enemy. He, covered in blood and tired, holds on to something and thinks that fortunately he is young, but the situation in the dungeon is difficult. She suddenly appeared in front of him, radiating light and surprising him with her appearance. The goddess of luck says that luck is a skill and is happy to support such a lucky player. He checks the data on the holographic screen with a sword, and she watches him with her eyes closed. He looks at the spec screen with a smile, and she watches him doubtfully, her arms crossed. He holds a huge sword, and she hovers nearby, radiating light in the tense atmosphere before a possible battle. He stands in front of a lifeless body in armor in the rain, watching a shield with a compass lying nearby. The image shows Kudnas's shield with a description of its special effect, which increases defense and turns damage into health regeneration at the expense of mana, consuming it completely. He smiles despite his wounds, and she looks at him in surprise, her arms crossed. He carefully places his hand on the metal shield with sharp spikes, creating a tense atmosphere. He begins to synchronize mana with Kudnas's shield, and she happily expresses support by hugging him. In the background of a building with a Q area sign, several people are walking along the sidewalk without interacting with each other. He sweats nervously and begins to speak, clearly stressed or anxious. He is breathing hard and has difficulty speaking, clearly experiencing great excitement or pain. A white car driving on an empty multi-lane road, accompanied by the sounds of traffic. He says while driving that ordinary rice with kimchi is the food of the peninsula. A shaking white car is depicted against a blue sky. He was frightened to notice that all the warning indicators of the car on the dashboard were on. He is driving a car, reacting tensely to the sounds of the signal that disturb him. 3 with evil smiles and glowing eyes threaten a sleeping man with knives, while one of them laughs ominously. The image shows a sword with a pattern blade secured with leather straps on the back of the character. He smiles intensely, sweating and looking intently ahead. Against the background of the skyscraper, banknotes fly, accompanied by a text about the creation of the system and the appearance of quests, along with the era of players. Several men in suits walk forward, bills fly around them, and at the top there is an organization that manages the tasks. He looks forward with concentration, radiating determination and tension in the atmosphere. The car brakes sharply in front of the tunnel, creating a tense atmosphere on the road. She says in disbelief that she can't believe she was stopped at the entrance. He anxiously explains the situation, and the other stands behind, listening attentively and expressing no emotion. She cries and laughs at the same time, pointing her finger forward while her body trembles slightly. He is saying something important with a serious expression, emphasizing his words with a sharp sound. He turned in surprise to the woman in the suit, who asked the question with a smile, while she, with purple hair, watched from behind. She stands confidently with a bow on her back and smiles, preparing for the upcoming test. He looks thoughtfully to the side and says that he can't understand why everything happened this way. A man with a mysterious smile watches as the silhouette of a girl with a bow is surrounded by a purple light inside his chest. He draws his bow intently, preparing to shoot an arrow in the night sky, surrounded by stars and blue light. A dark figure with glowing eyes and a sword on his back stands against a background of fire and sparks, creating an ominous atmosphere. The image shows a close-up of a metal helmet with the reflection of light and clouds of smoke around. She smiles and says something with confidence and goodwill. She smiles and says something confidently, and he listens to her with surprise and slight anxiety. He said that her kindness to a level 17th rookie was a reason to leave him alone while the other 3 were watching. He stands in the room and talks, and she listens, crossing her arms, near the passage with turnstiles. She stands opposite the 2 with a bow and quiver of arrows, preparing for a conversation. He sighs tiredly, and she looks at him anxiously, not knowing what to say. She apologized. He replied that everything was fine, while the other armored man watched with a serious look, and the woman in the hat stood aside. She smiles and says something cheerful, and he listens to her with a smile and a drop of sweat on his face. He said thoughtfully that he could not believe what was happening. He scratched the back of his head. She looked at him with interest, and the third, sighing, held her breasts. She smiles and begins to speak, expressing interest or surprise. He looks away, and she says something with a smile, holding the bag over her shoulder. Two men anxiously stare at a woman with a bow and a man in a cloak standing in front of them, preparing for a conversation or a confrontation. She talks to him with a bow, smiling, and he answers, looking at her. She looks at the two people and expresses bewilderment, asking questions without words. He listens attentively as she says something important and confident with a smile. He stands and looks forward, expressing calm and confidence. She sits with her hands back and looks forward with a slight smile against the background of the inscription, "The Player." He smiled and said that he had wanted to see her so close for a long time. She replied with a slight smile, looking into her eyes. She is explaining something as she stands on the sidewalk with a bow and arrow, and he listens intently next to the van. She said, thoughtfully, looking intently ahead. A man in a suit handed Kim Miso her level, and she answered with a question. He says he doesn't believe her, and she replies that he's not the only one who thinks so. He looks at the interlocutor with surprise and does not understand what is happening, expressing it with a questioning look. He and she look at each other, and the girl with a badge watches them anxiously. She asks him to wait while he looks at the holographic task screen in surprise. She stares intently at the holographic screen, while someone next to her touches it with her hand. 4 heroes with weapons stand in front of a mysterious blue artifact in the ruins, preparing for the upcoming test or battle. Several creatures with green skin and white hair stand together, their backs turning, as if preparing for something important. He stands in thought, without showing his face, creating an atmosphere of tension and mystery. He laughs, and she replies with a slight awkwardness that she did not expect such a turn of events. He sweats nervously and trembles as he stands in front of a woman who smiles as she watches his reaction. He abruptly grabbed the other by the arm, interrupting his movement. She smiles at the quest to destroy 300 wolf-like monsters with a reward of 500 million won, despite the warning of failure. It creates a powerful electrical explosion surrounded by rings of energy while a group of people watch. She looks at her watch anxiously and worries about the time. A man in a helmet with horns shouts at the two who are listening anxiously and sweating, holding a shield in their hands. 2 men look tensely to the side. One of them silently expresses surprise. He confirmed that, of course, he agrees, against the background of a bright gold symbol with a star and stripes. A warrior in red armor is surrounded by a dark aura, and a mage in a hat explains that rank depends on the number of dungeons completed. She smiles, and an A+ grade appears next to her, showing that the result of her action was excellent. 3 men are tensely discussing the situation, one of them in armor with horns, and the other 2 ask what is going on. Lightning flashes above the tower, surrounded by a purple vortex of energy, creating a tense atmosphere of the city at night. She stands with a bow against the night sky, intently preparing for a shot. He walks alone along an empty multi-lane road under a bridge at dusk. He hopes that he will take the chance and learn from the situation. She looks forward resolutely, preparing for the upcoming test or battle. She said he shouldn't have done that, and he lowered his head without answering. Lightning flashes above the tower, surrounded by purple light and energy, creating a tense atmosphere in the night city. She speaks with tension, while a drop of sweat is visible on her face and a quiver of arrows is behind her back. She notices something anxiously, expressing anxiety and tension. He smiles and says something confidently while standing in the dark with the number 017 on his clothes. He stands with his back, holding a large sword on his shoulder, and prepares for action under the gloomy sky. The image shows a large paw with sharp claws stepping on the ground, creating a sense of power and threat. 2 wolves with shining eyes and sparks around roar in the night city under the bridge. He smirks downstairs, his cloak fluttering, creating a sense of dynamic movement and confidence. It powerfully thrusts a huge sword into the ground, causing an explosion and flying fragments. A huge blue wolf with glowing eyes and an evil smile appears in front of them. He resolutely stated that he would take care of everyone. He deflects the attack of 3 vicious wolves with purple eyes that let out growls. She said, "What?" in surprise in response to what she heard. He fights off the attacking wolves by delivering a powerful blow that tears one of them apart. Sword in hand, he retreats, deflecting a powerful dark attack in front of him. He said the word Kieng with a smile in the twilight. She draws the string of her bow, preparing to shoot an arrow in a dark room. He grips the hilt of his sword tightly, preparing for the decisive blow. The image shows injured or dead wolf-like creatures lying on the ground with bloodstains around. She looks down and begins to speak, addressing someone, while in the background of the night sky, he stands on the road with a sword in his hands, surrounded by approaching blue wolves in the darkness of the night. He stands in the rain and smiles, looking ahead. She anxiously draws the string of her bow, preparing to shoot against the gloomy sky. The level 1 Demon Bash skill was activated, accompanied by an image of a clenched fist in a bright purple light. The image shows a vicious blue wolf head with sharp teeth and glowing eyes, surrounded by a purple glow and a tense atmosphere. She screams in panic, expressing great excitement and tension in the situation. In the darkness on the bridge, sharp sounds of battle are heard, accompanied by screams and flashes of energy. She explains that if the stun effect lasted for 4 seconds, then its stun is longer than Jinho's. With a smile, he easily dispatches wolves and wonders why it's so easy. He fights with large blue wolves that are rapidly attacking him from different directions. He stands with a sword, hitting and knocking back many blue creatures with an explosive attack. He smiles with confidence despite the dirt and sweat on his face, showing determination in a difficult situation. Someone exclaimed, "Wolf 1!" as a huge wolf with red eyes and energy rushed forward, destroying everything in its path. The image shows a beast with red glowing eyes and an open mouth, making a loud and threatening sound. He stands with a sword, surrounded by blue animal shadows and purple lightning, preparing to attack in a tense atmosphere. He realizes that he is under the effects of the debuff and stun because of the black wolf, feeling the voltage and electrical discharges around him. It stands on the roof of a building, surrounded by powerful purple lightning that illuminates the night sky and creates a tense atmosphere. With a bow in her hands, she noticed a sudden glow and reacted tensely to what was happening around her. A message appears on the screen, stating that the current artifact has escaped the stun effect. She looks ahead with surprise and fear, clearly noticing something unexpected. She begins to speak, expressing her thoughts with a slight anxiety in her voice. She draws her bow, preparing to release an arrow surrounded by sparkling energy and lightning. He stands with a huge sword, surrounded by purple lightning, preparing for battle in a gloomy atmosphere. He fights surrounded by bright flashes of lightning and energy waves in a dynamic combat encounter. She asks in surprise how this is possible, holding a drawn bow with a pointed arrow. He confidently asks about the debuffs, showing determination and readiness for battle. The evil beast roars, radiating rage and menace in the darkness of the night. He runs towards the huge creature and asks if the opponent is surprised. With a sword in his hands, he abruptly bounces off a huge beast with an open mouth and sharp teeth that suddenly appeared. He looks with wide eyes through the torn mask, expressing intense tension and fear. The blade pierces the body, dark blood gushing out of the wound, emphasizing the force of the blow. He jumps down with a smile, holding a sword in his hands, preparing to attack. He stares intensely, as if aware of something, and a drop of sweat is visible on his face. The dark creature slams the ground with force, causing a powerful explosion and destruction around. He looks forward with a sly smile, showing confidence and a hidden threat in a dark setting. It stands on the roof of a tall building at night, surrounded by glowing particles in the sky. She smiles and looks ahead against the background of twinkling purple lights in the night sky. He stands on the back of a huge black wolf with a sword, and around him lie defeated blue wolves on a road shrouded in mist and purple liquid. On the road lie 2 destroyed blue creatures, surrounded by purple smoke and debris. He is happy that he completes the levels quickly, observing his progress and receiving a notification when the level increases. A notification appears on the screen that you have received the title of D rank with the title Without Fear. He stands looking back at the purple river and the rocks around him, making a soft sound. She sits on the edge of a tall building at night, surrounded by glowing particles under the starry sky. He stands with a sword in his hand next to the defeated blue creatures and expresses displeasure with the sound, "Ugh." The image shows a spectacular sound or vibration indicated by red letters against a background of black and purple fog. He looks at a hand with mysterious patterns, illuminated by a purple light in the darkness next to a silhouette with white hair. He stands in the dark, with the number 017 visible on his clothes, but he doesn't say anything. The beast lets out a loud roar, expressing rage and threat. The inscription about the final boss appears on the screen. The Wolf Lord under the full moon. The dark silhouette plummets down and crashes into the ground with force, causing a massive explosion and destruction all around. He jumps swiftly with a sword in his hand, preparing to attack the enemy. A huge monster with a brightly glowing eye looks menacingly ahead, preparing to attack. He speaks with confidence, with a bright look and a grin, despite the traces of battle on his face. It deals a powerful blow to the wolf-headed creature, causing a bright flash and a loud roar. He abruptly moved forward, surrounded by dark energy, creating a tense and dangerous atmosphere. Due to the resistance to the Wolf Lord's skill, the Demon Strike skill was not activated, and he watched with tension. She anxiously said that the situation was insane. With a sword in his hands, he prepares to attack a huge wolf, which roars and steps on him. Sword in hand, he fights a huge beast that roars furiously and attacks him. He dodges the furious attack of a huge beast with sharp teeth and a glowing aura. A monster with an open mouth releases a powerful violet energy beam from its eye. He delivers a powerful sword strike at the opponent, causing sparks and a burst of energy. He deflects an attack from a blue creature by raising his sword and creating sparks from the collision. He concentrates on striking with his sword, saying that he has done it countless times. She noticed something unexpected and froze with a bow in her hands. He stands with a smirk with a sword on his shoulder, and behind him is a dark figure with glowing eyes. She exhales with a grin, clearly pleased with herself and the situation around her. There is a powerful explosion on the bridge at night, accompanied by loud noises and bright flashes. He rushes forward, overcoming resistance with an effort and making a sound of pain. With tension and disbelief, he thinks to himself that he cannot believe it. He plummets down, dodging the attacks of a huge wolf-like creature that violently lunges at him. He, sweating and wounded, says that he has little health left, showing an HP level of 120 out of 700 after a damage of 580. The monster growls furiously and charges forward, emitting dark energy and threatening to attack. The image shows a large, dark clawed paw with sharp claws against a gray surface. The image shows a close-up of the clawed paw of a dark creature against a gray surface. He delivers a powerful sword strike, creating a glowing trail in the dark. He swallows hard, feeling fear and determination at the same time. He delivers a powerful sword blow to a huge wolf-like creature, which attacks him furiously. The image shows dark legs or paws, possibly of an animal or creature, on a white background with no other details. The image shows a hand with claws, surrounded by bright purple energy, creating the effect of a powerful explosion or a burst of force. The monster roars, looking at the bright light that is rapidly falling from above. She said, "What?" in surprise against the gloomy sky. He delivers a powerful blow with a glowing blade to the enemy against a background of bright red light. The image shows a large red word on a dark background, creating a tense atmosphere with no visible characters. She dropped to her knees abruptly, feeling the tension and preparing for action. She knelt down and said something important in surprise, looking ahead against the evening sky. She is shocked and with tears in her eyes, expressing strong emotions and inner shock. She calls Sang-gyun against the backdrop of a bright, glowing landscape at night. She expresses strong emotions with her eyes wide open and tears on her eyelashes. Goodness's shield shattered and crumbled into ashes. Lost forever? A message appears on the screen that you have received a special sacrifice effect against a background of bright flashes and energy beams. He examines the holographic screen with information about the victim, and she carefully observes him, hovering next to him. The image shows a man's torso with 3 highlighted areas, labeled 1, 2, and 3. He regenerates health with a smile by radiating green energy from his chest, and his HP reaches a maximum of 700 out of 700. He prepares to attack with his sword, and the creature with the purple aura watches him intensely. The level 1 Demon Bash skill was activated, marking the beginning of a powerful attack. He stands with a weapon in his hands, looking at the aggressive werewolf who is preparing to attack, surrounded by purple energy. He lifts the rock above his head, preparing to strike, with a confident smile on his face and glowing blue eyes. She is standing against a purple sky with flying stones, holding a jacket and a shoulder bag in her hands. He holds a staff. Blood flows from the mouth of a huge beast, and its ominous growl is heard. She walks down the dark street with a bow and quiver of arrows on her back, holding a jacket in her hand. He turns around and begins to speak, but his words are not visible in the image. She stands with a bow and quiver of arrows on her back, holding black clothes in her hands and preparing for action. She exhales with fatigue, and he stands with his back, not responding to her words. He suddenly noticed something and expressed it with an exclamation. She winks and says that there is no need to worry, despite the tense situation. She looks ahead in surprise, without saying a word. He smiles as he looks over his shoulder at the dark night sky with purple hues and stars. He stands with a sword in front of the shadow creature and asks as if he doesn't understand what's going on. She looks worried and says she can't understand why the situation is the way it is. He noticed something unexpected and expressed it in a silent exclamation. He was surprised to see a huge sword, and she watched as a huge wolf-like monster stood behind them. The dark creature roars, showing sharp teeth next to the large sword. He, covered in mud and with the number 017 on his clothes, is smiling as he looks up against the twilight sky. He is surprised not to believe his eyes, studying the information on the holographic screen. She laughs and says something, and he listens attentively, standing next to her. She is silent with her eyes closed and a smile, as if thinking about something important. She sighed wearily and complained, and he, leaning on a huge sword, listened to her attentively. She looks away anxiously, a drop of sweat running down her face. She smiles and says something quietly, creating a mysterious atmosphere. He stands leaning on a large sword and expresses bewilderment with a question mark in his speech. She is worried, and he, despite the dirt and wounds, smiles and leads the conversation. He is surprised to realize that the face-off ability has been activated and receives a notification about isolation within a radius of 5 meters from the target. She laughs, and he, rubbing his head, admits that the situation was difficult. She is saying something important, and he is standing next to a large sword in his hand against the background of a dark structure. He stands in front of another person and looks at him with a slight smile, preparing for a conversation or action. He noticed something with surprise, expressing shock and bewilderment. She quickly drew arrows from her quiver, and he watched her actions anxiously. She smiles and says that she can shoot a bow while holding a quiver of arrows on her back. He laughs despite the dirt and wounds on his face and clothes, expressing a tired but satisfied emotion. He stands with a sword, surrounded by glowing particles in a dark room, preparing for action. A shining blue crystal floats in the air, surrounded by a magical aura and glowing particles. He shouts with a clenched fist and determination, expressing strong emotions and readiness for action. He happily presses a glowing blue crystal to his cheek, expressing delight and peace. The goddess of luck asked if he believed in her now, after he had tasted victory in life. He holds a glowing crystal as she and the creature with torn lips appear in front of him, and the inscription reports that the creature objected to his failure. She pushes him sharply, making a beep sound, and he reacts in surprise to the unexpected action. The screen shows the voting process for banishing a character with torn lips from the game system, where 61 out of 100 votes have already been collected. She drops her cap with a smile, and an announcement appears in the air saying that the one with the torn lips can no longer act as a constellation. He holds a glowing blue crystal and thinks he has forgotten how popular she is. He carefully examines the glowing blue crystal, holding it with both hands in the darkness. With a smile, he announces that the mana synchronization with the blue moonstone has begun. A brightly glowing blue portal appears in the room, surrounded by electrical discharges. It is surrounded by electrical energy and looks ready for battle, exuding power and determination. He looks in surprise at something shining brightly in front of him. With a sword on his back, he faces a group of people who are watching him closely, preparing for an important event or test. She looks anxiously at the man as he leaves, while the other 2 men behind discuss something with worried expressions. He looks at her in surprise, and she answers confidently, holding a quiver of arrows while the man in the background watches them. She smiles and says something, holding a bow and quiver with arrows on her back. He sighs heavily with bruises on his face as he watches the bow-wielding girl confidently talking to another woman in front of passers-by. He smiles and laughs quietly, despite the traces of dirt and fatigue on his face. Yoon Ju-han introduced himself loudly, raising his hand with a card while the three men with tense faces looked at him. He looks at her in surprise as she smiles, and the three men across the street show her something on their phones. She smiled and asked him if he understood the situation correctly. He says to her with a smile, despite the wounds and dirt on her face, and she stands with a quiver of arrows behind her back, listening to him. A black car rushes along the road, accompanied by the sound of wind and speed. He receives a notification on his phone about the transfer of 500 million won from the Korean Players Association. He looks at the phone screen with a smile, clearly pleased with what he has seen. He said things get faster when you're rich, sitting in the car with a girl with pink hair. He said the sum of 500 million with a smile as she sat next to her, showing no reaction. He turned around abruptly, surprised by the sudden sound and what was happening around him. With a grin and a drop of sweat, he asks what is happening right now. She sits on the couch and smiles, preparing to say something. She says she can't let him die, and he listens attentively, sitting across from her on the couch. He smiles nervously and sweats, and she looks at him with a smile, creating an atmosphere of slight tension between them. A group of 8 people confidently walks forward, chatting and smiling, preparing for the upcoming event. The image shows a gradient from dark to light with no visible characters or objects. He holds a dying woman in his arms and screams in grief among the prostrate bodies and weapons on the battlefield. He is in chains, surrounded by a red, ominous light, trying to free himself, despite the intense pressure and darkness around him. He is slightly nervous and smiles, rubbing his gloved fingers. He nervously squeezes his shirt, feeling tense and uncertain about what is happening. She sits on the couch and puts on gloves, and he looks at her from behind. She smiles and exhales with relief, expressing satisfaction or joy. He sits in confusion and tension, clasping his hands as if trying to cope with inner excitement. He laughs nervously, trying to hide his embarrassment and tension. She smiles thoughtfully, resting her hand on her face and looking forward with a slight playfulness. The image shows an empty cityscape with tall buildings and an arch against a blue sky with clouds in the background. She is smiling as she holds a tablet and stands by the door with an intercom on the wall behind. He is explaining something, holding the tablet, and she is laughing, covering her mouth with her hand and also holding the tablet. He happily holds the tablet and addresses her, and she smiles back. He thought with a smile about the fact that all the people on the waiting list had refused. The image shows a backpack, a box, and a bag standing on the floor in the corner of the room near the wall and door. He is standing at the window in the hallway, looking at the bright light outside. He stands at the window and looks at the light, making the sound of the door opening. He wakes up in his room, and a frightening face appears in his mind, causing him horror and confusion. He looks attentively at his hand, and the man standing behind him watches him anxiously. He feels a powerful energy running through his hand, which glows and is surrounded by an ominous red light. He clenches his fist with confidence and exclaims, "Youth, radiating strength and determination." He looks up at the giant creature surrounded by shadows and roots, feeling rejection and resistance. He asks her to stay still, and she smiles back. He stands with his back with a sword on his shoulder, looking at a group of people, among whom there are both ordinary and armed and mysterious figures. She laughs while talking on the phone, and he looks at her in surprise, sitting next to her on the couch. He noticed something disturbing and said that he could not believe what had happened, expressing doubt and concern. He is talking on the phone, and someone in the office asks who Shin Sang-hyun is. He is on the phone, and 2 colleagues in the distance ask in surprise if it is Kim Miso. The image shows a cityscape with tall buildings and an arch with an inscription, and a part of a black car is visible in the foreground. She gets out of the car, and he opens the door and addresses her, starting a conversation. She smiles and shows 3 fingers, explaining that there are only 3 minutes left. She listens with surprise to how he says something loudly and insistently, causing her a slight excitement. With a grin and a drop of sweat on her face, she says that you shouldn't take the situation so seriously. He laughs awkwardly, trying to hide the discomfort or pain. He stands with a sword on top of the Rubik's Cube, on which the words in and out are written. He stands on top of the blue cubes, holding his sword and carefully looking around. The image shows two shining gems, one blue and one yellow, accompanied by the inscription that the greater the danger, the higher the reward. The image shows sparkling jewels and jewelry against the background of the starry sky, creating an atmosphere of mystery and magic. The image shows a gleaming patterned sword and two large gems, red and purple, against a background of shining particles. She is surrounded by a glowing magic circle with a bow on her lap and looks surprised by what is happening around her. She sits in the car and looks at her phone with a smile, pretending to write or read something. He looks at the past object with surprise and tries to understand what it is. He looks at the phone screen, which displays a reminder of his meeting with Mr. Gregory and photos with wreaths and an urn. She is surprised to report that she found important information on the phone, and he is standing nearby, listening to her. She mutters something softly, looking down with concentration. He silently looks ahead, not saying a word. He stands in the doorway, leaning on the frame, and looks down as if in thought. He watches as the other two pass through a glowing portal surrounded by purple energy and golden streams. He says that in any case, it will be a big problem if someone finds out. He looks thoughtfully to the side, illuminated by a soft light in a dark hood and glasses. He holds an open book and reads it attentively, immersed in the study of the text. He is sitting at a table with a cup of coffee. The inscription, Eden Guild, is visible in the background. She reacted in surprise to the appearance of the man, holding a phone in her hands, and he stood silently in front of her. She smiles and exhales with relief, holding the phone in her hands. He sits, confidently saying that it is this person who can keep the situation under control. He smiles thoughtfully, holding his hand to his chin, as if pondering something important. He and she are standing on the landing by the fence, watching the view in the distance. He is talking on the phone and smiling, having a pleasant conversation. She smiles and talks on the phone, expressing joy and interest in the conversation. She is sitting cross-legged on the couch with a cup of coffee next to her. He, looking at the phone, told the other not to rush while he was standing behind with a weapon behind his back. He abruptly noticed something, expressing surprise without words. He studies a description of a mid-boss with 3 heads and the ability to spew heat, called Cerberus, the dog of hell and a supposed wolf-like monster. He looks at his phone with a smile and expresses surprise, saying, "Wow," to himself. The image describes the passive skill, Age of Night and Wolves, which increases the user's health regeneration and regeneration rate in the dungeon when the moon is raised, as well as stuns and protects against wolf-like monster attacks in the presence of Blue Moonstone. He is on the phone and says that he is just sharing the news and will call again soon. He smiles and says something with confidence. He smiles and says with confidence that everything will be fine. He shows a hand with many cuts, demonstrating the consequences of his actions. He scratched his head and smiled, while the other, with a weapon behind his back, stood with his arms crossed, listening to him. He smiles awkwardly and scratches his head while someone shows him a phone with a message. He shows another man an article about Shinsang-hyun and says that now he has really become famous. With a smile, he handed the phone to another, who exclaimed in response with surprise and tension. He looks anxiously at the ringing phone, which vibrates and makes ding-ding sounds. He shows something on his phone with interest, and the other says with a smile that it looks cool and funny. He promised Dakin that he would take care of it later, while another man addresses him by his first name. He looks at the package in surprise and asks if it's correct. He looks with a smile at the other, who has lowered his head, and it seems that a casual conversation is taking place between them. The robot fights using a weapon and makes a loud combat sound. He laughs awkwardly, sweating, expressing embarrassment or awkwardness. He began to say something serious, but she was interrupted by apologies as she watched them from behind. She smiles and fixes her hair while talking to someone off-screen. He spoke to the man in the white shirt with a smile, and she listened, smiling slightly and clenching her hands. He laughs and hugs the other, who is smiling nervously and sweating, showing awkwardness in their conversation. Metal-gloved hands clench with force, surrounded by bright pink energy and glowing decorations in the background. She meditates surrounded by violet energy, concentrating on her power while a magic wand lies nearby. She sighed heavily and showed that she was tired or irritated. He asked if she really just wanted to make sure, to which she replied in the affirmative, standing next to the other man and looking at the objects on the ground. He is surprised when a sword is raised over him and told that the deal will be completed now. The man with the sword says that he cannot let another person die, and the other listens anxiously. He smiles and raises his hands, showing that he is not guilty or does not want to conflict. He looks to the side, as if thinking about something important against the background of a clear sky. He in a white shirt stands in front of another with disheveled hair, and, judging by his posture, begins a conversation. He looks tensely to the side, feeling anxiety and inner tension. He exhales restrainedly and looks into the distance, expressing calm satisfaction. He raises his sword with a grin, preparing to attack. He agreed to comply with the request, and she replied with relief that it would be suitable. He screams with fury, his eyes glowing with lightning, expressing intense excitement and anger. He delivers a powerful blow with his sword to the opponent, who is trying to defend himself with his raised hand. The image shows the moment of impact, accompanied by a sound effect, with no visible characters or dialogue. He stands with his arms crossed, and she exclaims, "Kwa!" and covers her face with her hand. He swiftly delivers a powerful sword strike, creating glowing arcs in the air against a clear sky. He speaks intensely, sweating and expressing seriousness in his voice. He explained that he couldn't let another person die, and the other, sweating, listened to him anxiously. He is breathing heavily and looks tense, while the other listens to him from behind, watching the reaction. He is breathing heavily and looks anxious as he tries to cope with the tension. One man looks down with a serious expression, while the other, crossing his arms, watches him with a slight smile. He shrugged his shoulder and said it didn't hurt that much, trying to hide the discomfort. He reacts to what he hears with surprise and wariness, expressing doubt and tension. He tells the other to wait while he holds the sword and listens attentively. He squeezes the other person's hand tightly, showing determination and support. She asked in surprise what was going on, noticing two men who were standing nearby. She reacts to the unexpected event with surprise and embarrassment, expressing it with a silent exclamation. She says that things will get even better, backing up her words with a question. He admits that it's difficult, and the other promises to wait, addressing him by the name Daekyang while the girl watches them. He tensely pronounces the name Sangyun, and the other standing behind him calls Dakin with a smile. A white car drives quickly down the street against the background of trees and buildings. He calmly drives the car and hums a melody. He sits behind the wheel of the car and says something with a smile. He looks ahead in surprise and is silent. Two men watch as the car brakes sharply, causing sparks from the wheels. He asked if everything was okay, explaining that the other was in his blind spot. He looks in surprise at the other, who has put his hand on the table and wonders. He is wearing a cap with NY written on it and is talking to another man, expressing seriousness and tension in the conversation. He is in the car talking to a man at the hood, and the other is laughing and shrugging his shoulders, explaining the situation. He stands against the background of the fire with a tense and alert expression on his face. He concentrates on creating a bright ball of fire that radiates warmth and light around him. He looks in surprise at the man in the cap who is standing at the open car door. Two laugh at the fact that a newcomer to the dungeon got very scared and got his pants wet, and the third looks upset. He confesses his sympathy for the girl, and off-screen they say that Cho Sung-ho is his assistant, who shoots videos for him on YouTube. The man in the helmet reveals that all the newcomers were surprised if Choi Young-chul could lead the dungeon, and in the background, two people are listening to him. Choi Young-chul and Cho Sung-ho laugh, while the latter demonstrates fire on his arm, confirming his strength. He holds his sword and thinks how these pesky bullies keep finding him. He smiles and says something, looking at the interlocutor, who is partially visible on the left. With fire in hand, he addresses the man with a sword standing next to the car, while a third watches them from behind. A man with a chain around his neck snaps his fingers, causing sparks and smiling. He delivers a powerful kick to the car in front of a calm young man in a white shirt. He looks ahead in surprise, as if realizing something important. The image shows smoke coming from the damaged part of the car. He said it was Cho Seon-ho and Choi Young-H Joel, while he and another man watched a car pull up. He is saying something important, looking to the side, against the background of blurred buildings and the sky. He concentrates on touching the dent in the car door, surrounded by a slight whirlwind of energy. He looks at the statue attentively, touching it with his hand, immersed in thought. He shows his phone, and the other looks doubtfully and thinks that something is wrong here. He says with a smile that there is no need to worry, because he has a plan. He smiles and starts a conversation, addressing the interlocutor. He is kneeling in front of a damaged car, and two men on both sides are laughing at him. One of them announced that the camera was already working, while the other was holding the phone, and the third was listening doubtfully. He gently touches the hand with the tattoo, expressing tensions and caution in the moment. He looks thoughtfully to the side, without saying a word. He smiles and tells the interlocutor that there is no need to worry, because he is always there and will help. He shouts furiously, clenching his fists, expressing intense irritation and anger. He says something important with a serious look, while the other with the phone listens attentively, and the third stands next to him. He looks at the interlocutor with disbelief and says something with reproach. The image shows a fragment of the character's clothes in white and black on a brown background. The image shows an empty city park with a large sculpture of two intertwining rings and paths around it. He is standing with a sword in front of a man in a cap, and another is holding a sign. A small group of people have gathered around them. The three are intensely discussing, and one of them asks if it's really Shin Sang-hyun. He activated the training mode, and purple hexagonal patterns played around him. He creates a fireball and confirms a bet of 500 million with a risk to their wrists. He holds the phone and sees an alert on the holographic screen while the others follow him. He smiles as he watches the fire that flares up on his hand. He asked again in surprise, not understanding what was said. He, with brightly glowing eyes, soars into the air with his weapon raised, and another man looks at him in surprise. He looks down with a tense expression and says that something is going on around him. She looks forward in surprise, holding the remote control in her hand, and a drop of sweat appears on her face. She sits on the couch with a remote control in her hand and warns that you should not expect mercy even if you beg. She looks worried and tense, with a bead of sweat on her cheek, as if something is bothering her. He stares intensely forward, clenching his teeth and sweating with effort or excitement. She walked into a room where another woman with pink hair was sitting on the couch, holding out a remote as if inviting her to join. She took the towel off her shoulders and looked tired after her workout. She looks at the screen in surprise, which shows a man with a serious expression. She got up from the couch, and the other woman watched her carefully with a towel around her neck. She smiles and sighs quietly, as if enjoying the moment. He gets angry and swears, expressing rage and dissatisfaction. He furiously shouts, "Bastard!" as he attacks the other man with a powerful punch that destroys the ground around him. He is furiously preparing a fireball, and in his thoughts, this guy is completely. He attacks with fury, commenting that the enemy is a real bandit. With his head raised, he radiates energy against a background of bright, fiery light. He abruptly moved forward, causing a sudden sound of a blow. He raises a sword that emits fiery energy, preparing for a powerful attack. He said, "What?" in surprise and looked ahead warily. He delivers a powerful sword slash, surrounded by flames, creating an explosive wave of energy. It plummets to the ground against a backdrop of fire and dynamic lines that emphasize the speed and strength of the movement. He holds the phone anxiously, and she looks at him from behind while he thinks when Youngchul will get slapped. He looks forward with a tense smile and a drop of sweat on his face, clearly stressed or anxious. He is holding a shopping bag. She is surprised, and another man with a bat in his hands is looking at them carefully. She, embarrassed, refuses something, making a gesture, "Stop," and he listens to her attentively. She invited him to join them, to which he smiled and agreed, while the third watched their conversation. He rubs the back of his head in embarrassment and smiles, trying to explain himself. He awkwardly explains that everything is wrong, in response to the other man's harsh words. He looks tense and worried, with a bead of sweat on his face, expressing inner turmoil. He looks at the burning bag in his hand with a smile, watching as the fire begins to engulf her. She runs away, and the man with the bag, calling him Mr. Appraiser, tries to catch up while a third watches. He sits on a bench under a canopy in the park and looks at a burning object next to him. He stretches out his hand to a metal hand surrounded by glowing rings and symbols. He retreats in fright when a flying girl with purple hair appears in front of him in a glow of light. He smiles with a slight smile, and she looks at him with a sly smile and crossed arms. He is sitting on a bench, and she, hovering next to him, asks him something, causing him surprise. She looks thoughtfully ahead, surrounded by radiance and glowing sparks. The goddess of luck reproaches him, reminding him of her words, and he tries to justify himself, saying that everything is wrong. She looks thoughtfully to the side, as if comprehending something. He scratched his head in embarrassment as he talked to her against the backdrop of the sunset. She says that he has every right to be upset, and he apologizes and asks him to just forget about it. The goddess of luck generously promises to consider the constellation for him. She hovers over the table with closed eyes and outstretched arms, and he looks at her with a smile and clenched fists with admiration. He holds a glowing bracelet in his hands, which radiates a magical glow. He smiles at the glowing artifact he is holding in his hands, surrounded by magical energy. The image shows mouth-watering dishes shining with golden light, giving the impression of a gourmet and festive meal. The image shows the title, Top 5 Real Men's Dishes, on a black background with a yellow border. He stares in amazement at the large amount of food in front of him without saying a word. With a smile and a drop of sweat on his face, he wipes his mouth with his hand, showing a slight excitement or fatigue. He activated the dual instinct and noted with a grin that the enemy's firepower was weak. A player named Shin Sang-hyun has titles, a constellation, and a unique skill, as well as health and mana stats in the game interface. He looks up thoughtfully, his hand resting on his head. He parries the fiery blow with a sword, and the attacker shouts a curse in rage. She screams anxiously, and she listens calmly with a towel around her neck, not showing much emotions. She says with a smile that there is no need to worry, because everything will be fine. He swiftly attacks with a sword and reminds that the other has not forgotten their deal. He quickly flies at the man in the cap, who is surrounded by rings of fire and prepares to attack. He speaks furiously about the hand, and the other confirms his words with a smile. He swings his sword, causing a powerful burst of energy from beneath his foot. He smiles with cunning, showing confidence and a hidden plan. He is surrounded by glowing magic with a sword, preparing to fight another who stands opposite in a fighting stance. He was surprised to see ice crystals begin to appear around him. She thoughtfully says that she does not understand why everything is happening this way, and tries to understand the situation. She asks in surprise with a towel around her neck, and the other begins to calm her down, saying not to worry. She confidently warns not to underestimate her judgment by smiling and making a gesture with her hand. She smiles and begins to speak, expressing confidence and calmness. She looks at a screen of ice crystals in a dark room. The image shows a huge ice cave with a dark entrance from which cold steam emanates and snowflakes fall. He looks at the huge ice cave in surprise and asks what the hell it is and where it came from. He coughs softly, looking up at the night sky. A man with a chain looks up as a figure with glowing eyes and a sword jumps on top of him. He forcefully lowers his sword on the hooded man, who screams in pain. He opens the door slightly and asks in surprise what is happening. It emits a tense sound surrounded by luminous circles and lines, expressing strong emotions. He asks with a camera if it's Yeoncheol while the others watch. He looks at the phone screen in surprise, expressing great surprise. He plunges a huge sword into the ground next to a defeated opponent, surrounded by red light and smoke. He thinks with tension about what trick his opponent used, surrounded by an ominous red aura. She sits with a towel on her shoulders and calmly looks ahead, as if preparing for a conversation or thinking about something important. They are sitting on the couch, and she says it looks like it's from somewhere, causing the other to feel a little uneasy. She smiles and exhales as if sighing with relief. She admitted that he definitely feels different, but she sits on the couch with her back and says she can't afford to lose it. She looks down thoughtfully, lost in her thoughts. She sits at her desk and flips through a notebook, immersed in work at the computer. She looks worried and says she can't believe what's going on. The image shows the characteristics of the bracelet with effects on strength and endurance, as well as the hidden skill Psychedelic with a probability of 0.02%. She says with anxiety that she can't afford to lose her job, and this worries her a lot. Goddess of Luck in 3D glasses, eating popcorn while watching the action happen in front of the silhouette of another character. He stands tense against the red light, as if preparing for decisive action. He holds a huge sword with a sinister smile and glowing eyes, and asks what about the wrist on the lane? Bet now? He is in a panic and can hardly speak, experiencing intense pain and tension as the space around him collapses. He concentrates on releasing a powerful energy explosion from his hands, destroying the barrier in front of him. He now decides to take his opponent seriously, while both quickly jump to the center of the destroyed circle. It pushes off the ground with force, causing a vortex and lifting rocks into the air. He clenches his teeth with tension, trying to free himself from the golden chain that grips his neck. 4 characters are defending themselves from a strong wind or explosion. One of them screamed in fright, and the other can hardly contain the pain. He stares intently at his phone, sweating and clearly stressed or anxious. He grabbed the other by the face with fury, causing him pain and fear. He abruptly knocks the opponent down, stating that it will be their calculation. He feels a powerful energy emanating from the source in front of him, and reacts intensely to what is happening around him. He tensely says that something has changed the situation, surrounded by energy and rocks flying around. In a panic, he covers his face with his hand, expressing intense fear and tension. With a sinister smile, he pins the other to the ground and prepares to strike, squeezing his hand and face. He gritted his teeth and looks tense, as if he is preparing for serious action. He is in a panic, sweating and hiding his face with his hands, expressing intense excitement or fear. He looks carefully at the tablet while another man in uniform walks by against the background of a car indoors. The man asked him to sign the document on the tablet, and he looked at him in surprise. He is surprised, and the other, holding the tablet, explains something to him, causing the first one a slight anxiety. He cries and screams that he was happy to drive the other, who also does not hold back his tears. He said that you need to live happily, really. He furiously shouts that this is revenge for his beloved old car and strikes hard with his fist. In tears and fear, he apologizes, trying to defend himself with his raised hands. 3 surprised and frightened people react to something. One of them exclaims that he does not understand what it is. He is intently looking at his hand, from which multicolored energy and sparks emanate. He stands with his back surrounded by pink energy, preparing for action against a backdrop of blurred buildings. In the image, a man is lying surrounded by bright stickers and glitter, creating a playful and joyful atmosphere. He cries and apologizes, expressing deep regret. He is intently looking at his phone while several people are standing around him and watching. He experiences severe pain and tension, which can be seen in the drops of sweat and the expression on his face. He was surprised to see something in the hands of another person and expressed it with an exclamation. He looks surprised and tense, as if he has just heard something unexpected. He apologizes, expressing strong regret while the camera focuses on his eye and eyebrow. He stands on the broken sidewalk next to a huge sword and asks if he has hurt anyone, while another man lies in a dent in the ground. He stands in front of a sword that is plunged into the floor, and another explains the situation, pointing to a man lying in the cracks in the ground. He stares intensely ahead, a drop of sweat on his face, clearly anxious or stressed. One man apologized for the late introduction, and the other replied that he understood. He reacts in surprise to what is shown on the phone and says that he does not believe in what he heard. He shows his bank account number on his phone and says it's his account number. He shows the phone to another standing nearby, who replies that he understands, while the third lies in a dent on the ground. With tears in his eyes, he says that the other can do whatever he wants with the one he despises. A man with a beard makes a sound of pain or effort, expressing strong emotions. She quietly asks when he will come, and at that moment the doorbell rings. He walks into the room, opening the door and saying something with a smile. He stands in front of a crowd that demands that he tell them the truth, and one of them complains that he is stuck. He is surprised to hear that he is talking about a relationship with Miss Kim Miso. He breathes heavily and expresses irritation when talking about damn, someone or something. He smiles, making a quiet sound, expressing slight satisfaction or joy. He stands in front of his clothes and sword, preparing for an important event or meeting. He smiles and is surprised that Yoon Dae-gyung's friend agreed to sell him a few more artifacts. The screen shows a status menu with character stats and their increase. There are no available points for distribution. He sits on the floor and is glad that his dual weapon skill has increased. He touches the screen with the inscription about training passive skills, expressing determination or surprise. The image shows an instruction to store and release energy, warning of movement restriction during charging. He sits on the floor and says that he has a backup plan and a movement skill. He delivers a powerful kick to the mouth of a huge wolf, scattering blood in a rainy tunnel. He stands among the shards of ice, looking intensely ahead as if preparing for an important event or battle. He stands in the dark, covered in dirt and wounds, with an expression of shock and fatigue on his face. He holds a wounded girl in his arms and screams in grief in the middle of a destroyed battlefield in the pouring rain. He looks forward with a determined and serious expression on his face, preparing for an important event. A wounded boy on his knees asks who saved him first, looking at a man standing in armor with a raised sword. He sits cross-legged and notices the phone ringing next to him. He anxiously holds the phone to his ear, on the screen of which you can see an incoming call from PARK. He sits on the floor and looks at his phone in surprise, noticing something unexpected. He looks at the phone with tension and a smile, clearly waiting for an important message or result. He touched the screen and quietly said, "Oh." He picked up the microphone while another was enjoying the noodles, and the third was smiling, drinking tea, and pointing at him. He enters a room with two swords, surrounded by a red light, and the two onlookers look at him anxiously. He shouts with determination, emphasizing the importance of the path, while his eyes glow blue. The image shows a scene with ropes or cables stretched against a dark sky, with no visible characters. He sits on a chair and looks at his phone, lost in thought in a quiet room with a lamp and flowers on the table. He exclaimed in surprise, expressing bewilderment. He begins to speak, but his words are not visible in the image. He raised his hand in greeting, while the man with the staff and aura was surprised, and the woman retreated in fright. He calmly raised his hand, trying to stop the dark creature with a red glow. He breathes heavily, smiling with tension, and the girl watches him with a disgruntled expression on her face. He sits and talks calmly with another who is standing and holding his head, clearly in pain or discomfort. He sat down and said with a smile that he hadn't expected this turn of events, sweating slightly and waving his arms. He explains that it's something insignificant while sitting at a table with another man in a cafe. He smiles and says something, looking away. He silently drinks the drink through a straw, visibly straining and not uttering words. There is a glass of drink and ice on the table, and a voiceover starts talking about something important. He holds a glass of drink and talks about a project called EDEN. He said that this was also news to him, but the interlocutor may not be aware. He explains with a smile that he represents the Korean Players Association, raising his finger as a sign of importance. Dae. At night, on an empty city street, one person sits at a table near a cafe, surrounded by multi-story buildings with illuminated windows. He walks down the street with a large sword on his back, passing by other passers-by. She called out to Miso happily, and he smiled back, standing with his sword on his back. He suddenly noticed something behind him and became alert. A girl with white hair is smiling, and another with purple hair is laughing against the sky and a quiver of arrows. He is talking to two girls under a street lamp, one of whom is holding a bow and arrow on her back. She spoke with a smile, and he reacted in surprise, expressing it with an exclamation mark. She stands with a confident look, looking ahead, as if preparing for an important event or conversation. She narrowed her eyes and started talking about the cafe. She shakes hands with a man with a sword, and another girl stands nearby, watching their acquaintance. He stands in the dark, showing a close-up of his jacket with metal buttons and zipper. The narrator reveals that she, known as the Shadow Assassin, is one of Korea's top players, and her popularity is spreading even overseas. She looks at him in surprise, and he exhales and laughs with a grin. He is surprised and asks what Shinteri wants from him, and she remains silent, not answering. She smiles mysteriously and raises a finger to her lips, as if calling for silence. He raised a finger to his lips, calling for silence. She explains that she has already said it, and he reacts nervously, trying to justify himself. One of the girls says that she will check if it is worth it. Another asks if she said something, and the third reminds that she has already said it. One of the girls asked what had happened, while the other cheerfully supported her hand, and the man with the sword watched them. She anxiously warned that something was happening, and he listened attentively next to him. He raised his sword behind his back with a smile, preparing for battle. He anxiously called to his sister, who was confidently adjusting her jacket and smiling. He watches in amazement as the other person's hand emits a bright blue energy, evoking strong emotions in him. He is surrounded by violet energy, his eyes glow, and lightning flashes around him, creating an atmosphere of power and tensions. She grips her sword with force, surrounded by energy, demonstrating determination and power for the upcoming battle. He stands with a large sword in his hand, creating a tense and threatening atmosphere. He declares that he is ready, expressing determination against the backdrop of a dark environment. She is confused and asks if it is Sangyun and if she is a sister. She confidently declares that she is not afraid, and the other watches her in surprise. He runs quickly along the sidewalk, leaving traces of movement behind him. She watches in surprise as the whirlpool appears in front of her. He looks intensely ahead, feeling fear and anxiety. He slams his foot sharply on the door, creating a strong impact sound. He, in a blue jacket, attacks the enemy with 2 blades, their weapons facing a bright burst of energy. He thinks with tension that he must predict everything. He, with blue eyes, said, "Oh?" with interest, as if noticing something unexpected. It deflects a sword blow, creating a spark when the weapon collides. She strikes with a bat with a smile as she prepares to attack. He, with a sword in his hand, and she, with pink hair, are surprised by the appearance of a stranger from above. He, with bright eyes, with a smile, pronounces something with confidence and energy. He stands with a sword in his hand, surrounded by bright luminous lines that create magical or energetic protection around him. With his eyes closed and a bandage on his face, he says something serious, lowering his head down. He moves swiftly forward, preparing to attack, and the light effect emphasizes the tension of the moment. She looks at him in surprise, and he stands with his eyes closed, surrounded by electrical energy. She worriedly thinks he's crazy. He, with white hair, stands in front of a glowing portal surrounded by bubbles and energy lines. He jumps into the water with a sword in his hand, creating splashes and glowing effects around him. He closes his eyes and fires a powerful energy shot from his mouth, surrounded by glowing blue sparks. Someone abruptly orders to act immediately, shouting the word, "Now!" He and she fight, their weapons colliding with sparks and force, creating an intense moment of battle. He deflects the attack with the sword she is holding, and their blades collide with sparks. She smiles with cunning, saying something with a slight mockery. He stares intensely ahead, a drop of sweat running down his face, expressing anxiety and determination. With a sword in his hands, he calmly says that he has no words, while she attacks him with 2 daggers. She smiles and looks up, removing the blue jacket from her shoulders. With a sword in his hand, he addresses her, who holds a dagger, expressing surprise and readiness for battle. She looks intensely ahead and begins to speak, noticing something important. He prepares with a sword for a fight with 2 opponents, one of whom holds 2 blades, and the other watches. He concentrates on preparing for the attack, clutching his weapon and saying something decisive. He stares intently, his eyes glowing with a cold blue light, expressing determination and focus. She says, "All right," while picking up the spinning knife while it looks tense, and asks her to listen. She explains that the workout mode is not enabled, and this complicates the situation. He said he couldn't use them on such people, but that was more than enough. She leans on her hands with sticks, preparing to move, and makes a sound that expresses tension or effort. He resolutely exclaims that he is beginning to act. With bright blue eyes, he radiates confidence and prepares for powerful action. The character mentally admits that he will die. He tensely says that he doesn't even have time to prepare while moving forward quickly. The image shows the moment the glass breaks with the effect of motion and sound effects. The blade breaks the glass, creating a spectacular sound and flying shards. He swiftly attacks the space, causing an explosion and destroying the building, preparing for the next action. He falls down with a tense expression on his face, and the inscription, "Before she gets here," appears above him. He leans back sharply, dodging the huge blade flying from top to bottom with great force. He lies on his back and looks up, expressing strong emotions, but his words are not visible. He attacks sharply, and the other reacts in surprise to the sudden movement. He looks intensely ahead, sweating and feeling the intense pressure of the situation. She suddenly stabbed him in the face with her sword, and he cried out in pain. She speaks anxiously about what is happening, visibly agitated and sweating. She looks in surprise at the man in a white t-shirt and blue pants who is standing in front of her. He is standing with his back and saying something. A brick wall and smoke are visible in the background. He knelt down, covering his face with his hand and asking if his nose was broken. He says with irritation that he cannot understand why he is so touched and expresses doubt about the sincerity of the other person's feelings. She explained that it was a reflex when addressing a man, and another woman with a bow watched them with a worried look. He knelt down and shook hands with her, while another girl with a bow watched them. He was surprised when she suddenly came up to him and spoke. She smiles and talks to him, looking straight into his eyes. She, with purple hair, smiles awkwardly as she and the girl in blue shake hands, and the man between them just says, "Oh." She, with pink hair, asked if she understood the danger she could create, and the white-haired woman listened anxiously. She wished them safe home, and the other girl told him to call when he was done. She takes off her blue jacket, revealing her shoulder and the black strap underneath. She looks away, as if thinking or avoiding contact. She is smiling as she looks away, with a slight shadow on her face and a blue light in the background. 4 stand outside in front of a bright pink portal that makes a loud sound, attracting their attention. She clapped her hands happily and exclaimed that now she could get down to business. He greeted her affably, and she replied embarrassedly that she was glad to meet her. He smiles and says that they are now friends, addressing the interlocutor in armor. He smiles and puts his hand on his chest, expressing sincere feelings against the pink sky. He in armor smiles and talks, and she listens with a staff. Another girl crosses her arms, and a 4th stands with a large sword on his back. He creates a powerful blue energy pillar, attracting the attention of the 3 people standing next to him. He said with a smile that he still had a long way to go, and concentrated on activating the magic power in his hand. He screams with an effort, releasing energy or force from his mouth. It struck the ground with force, causing the destruction and ejection of rocks around. She talks cheerfully to him, and he listens attentively, while the 3rd character stands next to them, watching them. She embarrassedly admitted that the other girl's words were true. The 4 characters focus on the magical light emanating from the blue-haired girl who activates the spell while the others watch and interact. The image shows the spectacular sound or movement that accompanies the dynamic action, while the characters are not visible. She screamed in surprise, and he cursed restrainedly, noticing what was happening. He apologizes, expressing regret, in the background of blurred motion. The image shows a bright glowing effect with dynamic lines and sparks, creating the feeling of a powerful energy explosion or magical action. He stands on a dais with a sword on his back, watching as a glowing energy dome forms around the city. She looks in surprise at the glowing sword she is holding in her hand, and behind her stands a figure in a dark cloak. He asks to stop while she with blue hair bends over sharply, and a girl with pink hair watches them from behind. 4 heroes attack the monster. One releases a fireball, another prepares to strike with a sword, the 3rd aims with a bow, and the 4th creates a magical shield. He stands with a sword on his back, and the other 2 look at him with anxiety and tension. He admires the amazing team chemistry between them. He started talking about the bee situation they were discussing, and she suggested using it in the early waves, after which the other added her own thoughts. They argue, with one mocking, the other answering tiredly, and Sang-yun expressing dissatisfaction with the repetition of the situation. She looks at him in surprise without saying a word, and he listens attentively. He smiles with his eyes closed, letting out a quiet laugh. He walks forward with a sword on his back, surrounded by 3 men and 1 woman against a bright pink light. A strong wind rages on the snow-capped mountains, accompanied by sounds, and the inscription, "Unidentified Gate," appears at the bottom. 4 walk through the snow, 2 in front in conversation, and 2 in the back silently follow them, carrying weapons and preparing for possible danger. He looked back in surprise, and the other said something with a smile, causing him to be perplexed. It activates the Blessing of the Flame skill, which increases the cold resistance of those who have received the blessing. She thanks Taisak. He replies that in the end, everything worked out, and the third character watches them from behind. He noticed something, and she, holding the bow, looked at him attentively, preparing for possible danger. He holds a sword and smiles, and she, bow in hand, says something enthusiastically. He laughs awkwardly, sweating from slight embarrassment. She called out loudly to Juhi, and Juhi answered her with a question. He and she prepare to attack a huge monster with a club in a snowy glade at sunset. She concentrates on creating an energy ball in preparation for attack or defense. The monster emits a loud roar, expressing rage and pain during battle. The image shows the moment of the fall with a speed effect and a close-up of the symbol, but the characters are not visible. It creates an explosion with a powerful blow that destroys the ground around. Two quickly jump on the enemy with a bow, preparing to attack. She said that she was waiting for orders from Sangyun while they were both ready to fight in a snowy clearing. With a bright look and a smile, he expresses determination and excitement in a tense situation. A creature with yellow eyes and sharp teeth makes a loud sound to express aggression or pain. The two heroes swiftly attack a huge blue monster that emits a loud roar. She draws the bowstring, preparing to release the arrow with a determined expression on her face. He creates a powerful blue energy ball as he prepares to attack. She leaps down rapidly, firing an arrow from her bow that creates a powerful light blast on impact. He falls down, surrounded by blue energy currents and holding a sword in his hand, as if preparing to attack or defend. He clenches his fist, from which a bright blue energy stream rises, illuminating the dark background and flying fragments. He and she fight in the air, delivering powerful blows to each other. He raises his weapon, surrounded by radiance and energy, preparing for a powerful attack. It delivers a powerful sword strike to the opponent, causing a bright burst of energy and a devastating effect. It delivers a powerful sword strike, tearing apart the opponent's body and causing a blast of blood and energy. He furiously shouts Kang Juhi's name, expressing strong emotions. She concentrates on creating a powerful energy ball as she prepares to attack. The monster opens its mouth wide, preparing to attack or growl. He calmly looks at the huge monster that growls and prepares to attack in the pouring rain. It delivers a powerful blow that shatters rocks and causes a massive explosion. A sword is thrust into a snow-covered mountain, around which stones and snow fall. He smiles ominously, showing his sharp teeth, and says something with mockery. He swiftly attacks a huge opponent with his weapon raised, preparing to strike. He swiftly attacks a huge blue monster with a sword, striking its head. She warns that it is dangerous, and he prepares to use magic, confirming his intention. The Demon Bash level. 2 skill was activated and he let out a loud cry of pain. He unleashes a powerful sword strike that sends off the blue monster's head, letting out a cry of pain. He is in armor and a cloak, stretching out his hand to her with blue hair, as if inviting her to action or support. He and she look at something ahead in surprise, while she is slightly worried, and he tries to explain the situation. He exhaled wearily after the intense fight, running away from the large creature chasing him. He suddenly noticed something and expressed surprise without words. He explains nervously to the man, and the 2 girls stand next to each other, their heads bowed. He smiles and says they're just surprised. She smiles and says that this is hardly the last time he will surprise them, as long as he looks at her with interest. He stands next to her, holding his hand, and she lifts her leg as if she is about to take a step forward. With a grin and a drop of sweat on his face, he recounts his reaction, saying, "Pardon? Ha ha ha." He can't believe his eyes, and she replies that it's amazing, while the third one smiles next to them. He raised his big sword with confidence and said that the action would begin now. 4 heroes with weapons are preparing for battle with the advancing huge monsters in a snow-covered clearing among the trees. 2 creatures with horns lie on the ground in the forest, surrounded by weapons, and one of them laughs as if rejoicing in victory or something funny. He exclaimed in delight that it was amazing. He thanks the other, who answers with a smile, and a girl with pink hair watches them against the background of a snow-covered forest. She laughs, covering her mouth with her hand against the background of a quiver with arrows. With a smile and a sparkle in his eyes, He said that he understood the situation. One of them turns to Sangyun with a smile, who looks tense and worried. They ask Sangyun to work together again, and he asks in surprise, "What?" She smiles and says that she is already used to it. The explosion destroys the snow-covered forest, accompanied by loud noises, but the characters are not visible in the image. He and she attack at the same time, using magical powers to counter the dark menace emanating from the shadows behind them. She noticed something abruptly and exclaimed in surprise to herself. She draws her bow and screams as 3 monsters rush at her with fury, including a huge one in armor with horns. She warns that the situation is bad, and he agrees and prepares for a fight by activating the magical energy in his hand. She says with alarm that she can't let anyone die. He looks ahead seriously. She asks, "What?" in surprise, and the third one with purple hair expresses shock. She screams at him furiously as he falls backwards from the blow. He in armor with horns yells at Juhi to carry out the order, and she informs her that the door is open. He swings his weapon, creating a powerful energy vortex that rushes upward with bright light and sparks. It delivers a powerful sword strike from top to bottom, creating a bright flash and movement effect. He and she bounce off a powerful explosion that creates a glowing portal on the ground. He rapidly falls into a glowing vortex of energy surrounded by bright sparks. A dark figure with horns looks at the bright light coming from above, creating a tense atmosphere before a possible event. He attacks a huge monster with a sword, which makes a loud growling sound. He exclaimed sharply, expressing strong emotions against the background of contrasting lighting and dark space. He and she are surprised and anxious to understand what is happening, and she begins to say, "This." He looks forward with a smile and determination, pronouncing the word with confidence. The image shows a close-up of a character's arm and body parts in a dark suit against a background of glowing particles. She noticed something and exclaimed in surprise, while the other 3 watched her intently from a short distance. Worried, she asks him to be quiet, putting her finger to her lips so that he does not make any noise. 4 of them look down from the edge of the cliff. One of them is worried and says that something has fallen. 4 stand on the edge of a cliff, watching the landscape in a snowstorm. Someone asked if the 3-headed beast in chains was sleeping surrounded by blue flames. An inscription appears on the screen, warning of an encounter with an intermediate boss, Cerberus of the Frozen Hell. He is silent, and she looks at him anxiously, clearly waiting for an answer. He smiles and says something in a mysterious tone. He smiles as he looks at the mystical object glowing with purple light hovering above him. With a sword on his back, he approaches the 3, who are warily looking at him and preparing for battle. He is standing with a sword, and she with pink hair is worried, looking at him. A girl with blue hair is sitting next to him. He smiles, holding his sword behind his back, and lets out a quiet sound of satisfaction. He doubts whether to trust someone, and she considers what is happening too complicated and stressful. He raises his sword and tells the others to look at him, while the other 3 watch in amazement. He quickly jumps down from a high place, and the 2 girls at the top watch him in surprise. He swiftly attacks with a sword on a huge blue monster with horns, preparing to deliver a decisive blow. He growls, making a KRR sound, expressing displeasure or threat. He called someone with a smile, expressing interest and energy. The 3-headed beast with glowing blue flames, eyes, and horns lets out a menacing roar, showing off its power and fury. She exclaimed to wait, and he replied with a stutter, agreeing, while another girl with a bow watched them. He prepares with a sword to fight the 3-headed monster, and the 3 watch him from a dais, assessing the situation. She speaks anxiously about what is happening, a drop of sweat running down her face, expressing concern. He stands with a sword in his hand in front of a huge 3-headed dog in blue flames, chained in chains, preparing for battle. He anxiously warned that someone was approaching, and she listened in fright, not looking away. With her eyes wide open, she expresses strong surprise or fear. The image shows a close-up of a blue creature with black horns against a background of glowing particles. He stands with a sword in front of a huge 3-headed wolf with blue flames and chains, preparing for battle. Cerberus of the Frozen Hell will recognize you as a high-ranking creature. He watches in amazement at Cerberus, who will soon fully obey. He asks if you thought it would be that simple, and states that he will finish it quickly. The image shows a collapsed stone wall with cracks and glowing particles in the air. He pierces a huge monster with a sword that emits fire and sparks. He was surprised to notice the information window that appeared in front of him with a description of the skill and its rank. A skill with a rank C appears on the screen, which reduces the cooldown of the selected skill in half. It activates the holographic interface by holding his hand to the screen, and a large sword hangs from his belt. He is surprised, and she, with a bow and arrow, asks what is going on while the other two watch them from behind. With a serious expression on his face, he says something important, looking away. He watches in surprise at the glowing blue orb that suddenly appeared in front of him. He cried out in alarm, and she calmly held her quiver of arrows, ignoring his words. She said Sangyun's name, and he was inwardly afraid that she was going to demand something. He noticed something unexpected, and she was standing next to a bow and quiver on her back. She anxiously asks if he is relieved, and he answers in the affirmative with a smile and a drop of sweat on his face. The three heroes are discussing handing over something to Sangyun. One of them says that they didn't even do anything, and the other confirms it with a smile. He smiles embarrassedly and scratches the back of his head, as if trying to justify himself or explain himself. She talks cheerfully, he with a sword surprised, and the others listen to their conversation. She turns to him, and he listens anxiously, noticing her sudden appearance with a bow and arrows on her back. He was surprised to realize something important. His gaze became resolute and focused. She begins to speak with a smile, but her words are not visible in the image. She said she would go first, and he watched her silently on the empty street. She stands with her back, holding a quiver of arrows and a bow against the gloomy sky. She listens thoughtfully and asks what happened when the interlocutor said that someone left and turned around. He looks at her anxiously, clearly disturbed by the conversation between them. He mentally tells himself that this is the very moment. She warns sternly, and he holds the glowing object with a smile, chuckling quietly. He reacts doubtfully to what has been said, saying, "Oh good?" against the background of question marks. She asked if Sangyun was really doing that, and the other replied that because of this, he needed to be given some personal space while he watched them. He exhales with a smile and a slight awkwardness, and begins to speak, trying to explain or justify himself. He orders to be taken and eaten, holding the sword next to a glowing blue object. The image shows the artifact Heart of Ice with dodging and defense effects, as well as a description of its ability to freeze the world with cold. The image shows a snowy landscape with strong winds and mountain formations, with no visible characters or dialogue. She concentrates on creating a powerful energy ball, emitting a cry of effort. He smiles as he watches her with blue hair in pain, and the girl with pink hair supports her with her hand on her shoulder. He speaks with a smile, and she answers with a disgruntled look, while the third watches them in armor and with a red cloak. She says that she complied with the request, but something went wrong. 4 heroes stand in front of a defeated huge monster with its mouth wide open in agony. He exhales steam with a smile, and she listens to him without interrupting the conversation. He said to lure the main monster, and the other agreed while the 2 girls watched them. The 4 characters gaze intently at a glowing hole in the rock, surrounded by snow and mountains. He says worriedly that the situation must be serious, and the other listens with tension. He emits a loud cry expressing severe pain or shock. 2 men with swords stand in the snow and look at a huge wolf-like creature hiding behind a rock. He raises his baton to strike, while the 3 watch him with wariness and attention. The image shows the sound of a bump or collision, conveying the dynamic action in the scene. 2 men are preparing for battle. One holds a large sword. The other concentrates on creating a magical sphere in his hand. He prepares to attack with a spear, and she concentrates magical energy in her hand, surrounded by the shadows of others present. She stands in the snow with a bow in her hands, screaming as if preparing for battle. She swallowed anxiously, clearly tense or anxious. He stands with a huge sword, preparing for a battle with a giant creature that looms over him in a snowstorm. He clenches his fist and prepares for battle, holding a sword in his other hand against the background of a gloomy landscape. With blood on his lips and a drop of sweat on his face, he says that he can't lose, despite being tired and in pain. 4 characters carefully examine a huge stone face covered with snow and cracks. She speaks anxiously, and he replies that he has already expressed himself clearly, There is a tense conversation between them. He says he can't let anyone die. The four heroes are preparing to fight a huge fiery bear standing between them, each holding a weapon and focused on the opponent. The bear noticed that the hunger indicator had reached a critical level, and his attention was attracted by the food icon that appeared. An angry beast with glowing eyes furiously gnaws on a large piece of meat surrounded by many bones. A dark creature with red eyes spews poisonous purple smoke surrounded by a skull symbol, creating an ominous atmosphere. He noticed that he was carrying more than the others, while the two walked behind with a smaller load. He says thoughtfully that he can't understand why she doesn't answer, and she listens with tension, not knowing what to say. He in armor covers his mouth thoughtfully with his hand, and the other, addressing him, says something in surprise. With a smile, he confidently knocks his fist on his chest, expressing determination and cheerfulness. He falls among the exploding rocks and furiously says that it was a lie. The image shows the moment with falling fragments and parts of the structure, accompanied by the inscription, "I'm seriously," he said with an effort that too much had already happened, with blood on his lip and a tense expression on his face. A huge beast jaw with sharp fangs opens, making a threatening sound. He raises his sword with an effort and wonders why it is so strong, wondering if he has enough strength. He lands with difficulty, feeling like he's barely back. The image shows a powerful explosion with flying fragments and bright flashes, with no visible characters. The image shows debris falling with a bright light, creating the effect of explosion or destruction. He swiftly attacks the huge beast with red eyes, delivering powerful blows that cause explosions and flying fragments. In the dark, a scream is heard, accompanied by sparks and smoke, creating a tense atmosphere. He floats in the air, preparing to attack a giant creature surrounded by smoke and sparks. He thinks with tension that the object's reaction is very fast. He furiously lunges at the huge bear with its mouth open, preparing to attack. It makes a loud growling sound against the background of a dark forest with sparks. He shoots a bow, firing arrows at the target, accompanying the shots with sounds and tense movement. It deals a powerful blow to a huge beast with red eyes and sharp fangs, causing an explosion and a bright flash. He looks intensely ahead, a drop of sweat running down his face, expressing anxiety and concentration. She stands on top of a cliff with weapons in her hands, preparing for the decisive moment. She screams with fury and determination, directing the blow forward, showing determination in battle. He smiles intensely, feeling inner excitement and preparing for the upcoming event. He swings a huge sword, preparing to deliver a powerful blow in a fast-paced and tense scene. He opened his eye abruptly, expressing great fright or shock. He fully charged the attack and punched his opponent's head with a powerful blow, causing him to scream in pain. It slams into the ground with force, causing a powerful explosion and flying fragments of stones around. The grizzly was frozen for a second due to the effect of a full charge when an ice attack hit his body. He holds a huge sword with a smile, preparing to attack, and shards of stones fly around. He stands, looking up at the huge falling stone that is rapidly approaching him. He shouts, "Spin!" and delivers a powerful blow with his sword, from which blood spurts. He activated the Demon Bash skill and hit the huge bear with crystals, injuring it. She loudly calls out to Taesak, who is intently looking ahead, standing against the icy landscape. He concentrates on summoning powerful blue magic, surrounded by flames and energy, preparing to attack or defend. He shouts, warning to dodge danger. He suddenly noticed something and was very surprised. He uses the Blue Flame Flamingo skill, unleashing a powerful blue fire strike on the opponent. He fights a huge beast that collapses and is surrounded by blue flames, causing him great surprise. It tensely defends itself against a sudden attack with blue flames, sensing a threat and preparing to retaliate. The image shows an open mouth with sharp teeth and ice flying around, creating a sense of danger and power. The eye with a yellow pupil bleeds, creating a tense and anxious atmosphere. The image shows sharp bloody fangs oozing blood from them, creating a tense and dangerous atmosphere. He smiles and says something with confidence, despite the tense atmosphere around him. He smiles as the inscription appears, stating that Grizzly Big Bear has entered a state of... She draws the bowstring as she prepares to fire, with a determined expression against the backdrop of the sunset and flying particles. The text says that the large grizzly will now devour everything around. He stands with a sword in front of a huge monster that roars and prepares to attack against the flaming sky. He tensely asks where the teddy bear has gone and swallows, preparing for something. He notices that the creature has turned into another monster and wonders about its condition. He exclaimed the girl's name as she landed abruptly in front of him. He looks anxiously at her, standing at the glowing portal on the edge of the cliff. She creates a powerful energy vortex while the two watch her from afar. He whispers under his breath in surprise and anxiety, trying to understand what is happening around him. She anxiously asks why he does not answer, and he is silent with tension and sweat on his face. With a scream, he dodges a powerful blow from a huge creature with a burning eye, destroying the land around him. He runs forward with tension, preparing for the upcoming clash or fight. He opened his eyes abruptly in amazement and tension. A large symbol appears against the background of fire and smoke, creating a tense atmosphere before an important event. A huge beast with glowing eyes and sharp teeth appears in front of them, ready to attack. The image shows a large red word, "Oops," on a dark background, conveying a sudden reaction or fright. He screams in despair, feeling the power of the dark shadow that hangs behind him, surrounded by fire and destruction. He raises his sword with determination, saying that if it comes to this, he can't dodge. He activates the psychedelic skill with effort, clenching his teeth tensely and radiating energy. She hovers above the glowing vortex, as if preparing to enter it or use its power. With blood on his lip, he looks down in shock and expresses surprise. He delivers a powerful blow with a huge weapon to the advancing monster with bright eyes and sharp teeth. He stands with a weapon, creating a powerful energy vortex that rushes forward, surrounded by luminous particles and dynamic energy. The image shows an abstract glowing tunnel with shimmering dots on a pink background, with no visible characters. He and she jump swiftly towards the blue-haired girl, who struggles to stand up and makes a sound of pain. He was surprised by the large amount of mana, and admitted that it was too dangerous. He stands with his sword, watching as the creature with black tentacles and orange flames makes sounds similar to chewing and growling. A monster with huge teeth attacks and eats a person, accompanied by electrical discharges and destruction. He said he felt dizzy, and she replied that he was the best, while the third was laughing next to him. The beast, with its bloody mouth and bright eyes, is breathing heavily and roaring, making a threatening sound. A wounded beast with fiery wings roars and leans on the ice, blood flowing from its body. He is injured and bleeding, which causes him severe pain and shock. The winner of the battle hears heavy breathing and receives a message about the victory over the final boss, a huge grizzly. He and she stand in front of a huge monster that causes an explosion and lifts rocks into the air. A message appears on the screen, congratulating you on completing a level called Frost Hell. She smiles with a bow in her hands, and he answers with a smile and a drop of sweat on his face, clearly experiencing a slight excitement. A message appears on the screen about a significant level increase as a reward for completing the gate. With a grin and tired eyes, he makes a strange sound, as if trying to express displeasure or irritation. She apologizes for not being able to help finish the job, and he thanks her for her good work, holding a sword, another girl standing next to her. He smiles, and she says with a slight awkwardness that she thinks it's a great chance. He smiles with his eyes closed, expressing joy and calmness. A group of people and machines have gathered in front of a huge glowing portal that radiates powerful energy and illuminates the surrounding space. He is in a panic when two men rush to the victim lying on the ground, and the woman tries to help, and one of them shouts about an urgent patient. One man supports the other and asks if he is okay, while a woman with blood on her clothes holds the wounded man in her arms. He looks away in fright, and the other warns with a serious expression that if he does not kill, he will die himself. She cries over the wounded man and desperately asks how this could have happened. He holds the wounded man by the hand covered in blood, showing the rings on his fingers. He reflects on the fact that being a hero means always facing death. He stands next to a huge sword, his hand on his belt, and looks thoughtful against the background of falling petals. He smiles with a slight relief, letting out a quiet sigh. He thinks to avoid any unnecessary deaths, He panics to call out to Joey as she complains of pain in her head, and she supports her in an attempt to help. She, with blue hair, swallows nervously, and the other three watch her intently against the background of the sunset. The four heroes stand in front of a bright pink flame emanating from a bowl and watch what is happening with tension. He excitedly explains that when the first bonus is reached, everyone will receive a corresponding reward. He gently takes her hand, expressing tenderness and support at this moment. The goddess of luck encourages him to watch as she reveals the truth about her powers, and he reacts in surprise to her words. He smiles with confidence and looks away, as if preparing for an upcoming event. He holds out his hand, emitting a soft glow against the sunset sky. Shin Sang-gyun receives a unique rank artifact, and he reacts to this event with surprise. An inscription appears on the screen, offering to select one artifact from the list. He smiles nervously and sweats, and she looks forward with confidence, keeping her hands on her waist. He is surprised, and she looks at him with a smile, causing bewilderment. The image shows a spectacular explosion or impact with bright lighting effects and soundtrack. He and she watch as a message appears about unlocking the hidden effect for artifacts above the unique rank. He looks at the holographic screen in surprise, and she proudly watches him, expressing confidence in her words. The goddess of luck demands to sincerely thank her for her efforts, and someone in return is ready to do everything for her. He looks anxiously at the three of them, who are carefully studying the holographic screens in front of them. He looks at the glowing object in his hand with surprise, and she happily watches him, expressing approval and support. He raises his hand, summoning a powerful energy weapon called the Great Martial Spirit Sword. The image shows a magical or energetic object emitting a bright pink light and sparks. He shows off the sword, saying that he already meant the artifact. He smiles with a slight drop of sweat on his face, expressing mixed feelings. He carefully touches the metal pipe, as if testing its strength or preparing for action. He grips the hilt of his weapon tightly, radiating determination and strength. He reacts in surprise to the powerful blow that destroys the ground in front of him. He plunges his sword into the ground and asks what happened to Lighten as she watches side by in alarm. He carefully examines the holographic screen with information about the special effect, displaying a serious and focused expression on his face. He explains something to the pink-haired man with a smile, while a glowing little fairy with long hair hovers between them. Three smiling characters demonstrate magical objects and powers, creating an atmosphere of surprise and delight. She laughs and he smiles awkwardly, scratching his neck as they talk. He holds a heavy weapon in one hand and touches his head with the other, as if preparing for battle or contemplating what is to come. The four discuss a plan of action. One of the girls insists on a peaceful solution, and the other man looks worried. He covered his face with his hand, expressing intense inner excitement and trying to hold back his emotions. Sang-kyun is worried, and the two girls assure him that everything is fine and ask him not to cry. She anxiously said Sang-kyun's name, and he struggled to hold back his laughter, thinking that he couldn't laugh yet. Four stand outside in front of a glowing portal emitting blue energy, preparing to enter it. She said it would be great to eat together, and he replied that they didn't seem to have a choice and could celebrate. The three say goodbye to Sang-kyun. One of the girls promises to call, and he thanks them for everything. She said, "Oh," expressing surprise or confusion. He noticed something unexpected and expressed surprise as he stood beside her, who had a quiver of arrows on her back. He laughs with a tense smile, trying to hide his excitement. She smiles mysteriously, making a soft sound, expressing a hidden confidence or intention. She happily waves her hand and smiles, greeting someone against the background of the evening lighting. He stands outside at night, leaning on his staff and looking intently ahead, as if waiting for something important. He smiles and exhales, surrounded by glowing particles on a blue background. He was surprised that he had never expected to see such an expression on her face. He says they'll see each other soon, and the two girls next to him are smiling and looking happy. He smiles and exhales, as if about to say or do something. He stands in the courtyard between the buildings with two large swords, surrounded by glowing energy. The character absorbs the disappearing great sword, which is surrounded by blue electric light and is shattered into pieces. He sits in the lotus position in the rain, concentrating on the collapsing luminous object in front of him. He stretches out his hand, from which sparks and luminous particles emanate. He smiles and says that he has already achieved a lot, pointing to the virtual OK button in front of him. He smiles as he looks at the holographic panels that appear in front of him with information about the character. He studies the status menu with increased strength and agility values, analyzing his game characteristics. He sits on the floor and interacts with the holographic screen with a smile by pressing it with his finger. He reflects on how it took Yoon Dae-kyung years to reach level 50, and he did it in just 15 days. He sits on the ground with a sword and resolutely says that he will continue to move forward at the same speed as long as the wall nearby is torn apart. With a smile, he promised to take revenge on Shinteri next time, sitting on the ground next to his sword and surrounded by lightning bolts. A message appears on the screen that the Lion King is showing great interest in sword mastery. He is praised for his fighting spirit by the owner of a beautiful beard, surrounded by 2 girls and a lion-like creature. The Dark Hunter doubts the existence of someone like this in this world, while the Light Fairy watches her with a smile. He stands with his back to watch the red light and sparks emanating from the space in front of him. The Goddess of Luck says that the composition is not bad, and the value of the Sanhyun coin has skyrocketed. He stands in front of 4 powerful beings, surrounded by a magical aura and ready for battle. She smiles and gives a thumbs up to express approval or support. A warrior with a long beard stands with crossed arms next to a powerful armored lion, surrounded by a glowing magical glow. He and the lion-faced creature look at each other, expressing bewilderment. The owner of the beautiful beard explodes and says that in his time he would have chopped off the head, and the other apologizes, showing nervousness. He thinks that's why he hates the constellations of heroes, and already sees how much pressure they will put on if he signs a contract with them. She smiles ominously, folding her hands to her face, surrounded by a dark aura and glowing particles. She moves digitally, using weapons to track players in real time. She smiles ominously, grabbing him by the neck with her black hand, and he looks frightened and tense. He clenches his teeth tensely and sweats, clearly experiencing great excitement or fear. The mage explains that the player's choices can completely change their future, while magic and mysterious creatures glow around them. She says that it is enough for him to have the Goddess of Luck by his side while they are both in outer space. He stands with his arms crossed, and she smiles, surrounded by dark energy against the background of a light night. Above them hangs the word, still. Several figures watch as a glowing dragon appears above the mountain, surrounded by a mystical aura and sparks. The image shows a mysterious eye surrounded by cosmic and mystical elements, with the title, Mythical Constellations. The hero explains that they are literally mythical creatures. He suddenly appeared in front of the group, causing them shock and bewilderment. He watches as the beard owner and his companions enter the portal, and the text reveals that he considers him his brother and will consider a 3rd visit for recruitment. She stands with her back to sharp spikes and a red energy field, as if preparing for battle or transformation. The Dark Huntress warns that one day she will reveal the hidden secrets of the interlocutor. He stands with a weapon in his hand, watching the cracks and sparks on the wall opposite. He is breathing heavily and looks worried, a drop of sweat dripping down his face against the background of a dark and disturbing environment. He smiles calmly as 3 creatures with glowing eyes and intimidating features stand behind him. Holding his sword behind his back, he notices that 3 races a day is a lot. He smiles and says that we need to do it. A close-up of the building shows a screen with the inscription Q Area and a mention of the Kim Sung-hyun and Park Yun-tae Players Association. He explains to her the details of the work, while 2 other employees are busy at the monitors in the technological room. She holds the phone to her ear and listens attentively to the interlocutor, being in the office with blurred figures in the background. She took the phone in surprise and began to speak, clearly alarmed by what she heard on the call. She is in shock with a shout of, "No way!" Sitting in front of the monitors, holding a phone in her hand. A danger warning appears on the screen in the area of Bupyeong Station on line 1. She shouts into the phone, expressing intense excitement and tension. He looks at something with surprise and anxiety, a drop of sweat dripping down his face. She wondered how they got there in the first place, while 2 men and 1 woman watched intently. She hides around the corner and shouts to evacuate urgently, while a man with a weapon fights the advancing enemies against the backdrop of a bright explosion. He picks up the axe and says he's not doing anything amid the vibrant energy and tense atmosphere. A dark creature with brightly glowing eyes and sharp teeth looks maliciously to the side, creating a sense of threat and danger. The image shows the moment of a strong impact or explosion with flying black and purple particles on a light background. The image shows a powerful explosion or energy discharge of bright pink on a dark background. Dark creatures attack, and 3 people fall in a brightly lit space, different from dungeons or gates. A bright purple burst of energy is depicted, destroying surrounding objects with no visible characters. A sinister wolf emerges from the portal with glowing eyes and a terrifying aura. With a sword in his hands, he looks at a creature with red eyes and a menacing appearance in the dark mist. He smiles with confidence as he holds a large sword against the purple sky. He holds a violet light weapon in his hand, surrounded by sparks, and prepares for action. He gets off the subway at Bupyeong Station, followed by 2 and 2 more on the street. He looks around warily, holding his weapon behind his back, preparing for possible danger. He scratched the back of his head nervously, and the other, holding his phone, looked back with tension. The beast-like attacks the pink-haired woman, pinning her to the ground and threatening her with an axe while she screams in fear. A group of adults and children smiling and posing together against the backdrop of a sunny day, creating an atmosphere of friendship and warmth. The broken photo with bloodstains depicts a group of people of different ages, captured against the background of nature. She screams in tears and blood and terror as a dark shadow with claws approaches her against a background of falling figures. It stands facing a tentacled creature, while another monster-like creature holds a person in the air, creating a tense and sinister atmosphere. He smiles and says something, illuminated by a soft blue light. He concentrates on thinking that the goal is more important than becoming stronger, and prepares for an attack with a sword in his hands. He stands on the road with weapons, while a group of armed creatures emerge from a bright purple portal. 2 wolf-masked warriors roar and prepare to attack, brandishing axes and shields. A message appears on the screen that during the time of dogs and wolves, kobold warriors experience the intimidation effect. He stands with a sword in front of 2 vicious creatures, surrounded by a red light and a purple energy ball emanating from it. He smiles and says something with confidence against the background of glowing particles. He stares ahead, concentrating on something important. He stands on the bridge with weapons in hand, surrounded by mystical light and energy, preparing for the upcoming battle under the night sky. He says with a sinister smile that he is not going to stop and intends to continue. A character with a wolf's face and glowing eyes growls, expressing aggression. He raises his sword with fury, preparing to deliver a powerful blow. He stands in the dark in the rain, suddenly noticing something that surprises him intensely. An angry bear with bright eyes rushes forward, radiating threat and strength. The wolf looks at the glowing portal that radiates powerful energy, preparing for action. He creates an energy shield with a club, repelling the attack of 2 wolves that roar and lunge at him. The image shows a description of the hidden skill Knockback Burst, which spends mana to push the enemy back with a success rate based on the resistance to the enemy's skills. The image shows the moment of a strong impact or explosion, accompanied by the effect of movement and flying fragments. Sword in hand, he falls down through the shattered ceiling, shards and glowing particles flying up around him. Several creatures with horns fall down with force, accompanied by the sound of a blow. He plummets down, and a creature with horns appears below against a bright flash of light and energy. A group of creatures with weapons is surrounded by powerful purple energy, emitting growls and the sounds of strings being stretched. With a smile and a drop of sweat on his face, he says something when he is in a tense or exciting situation. 4 wolf-like creatures with weapons roar and prepare to attack, and one of them believes that this is enough for his massive attack. 2 wolf-like creatures with blood in their mouths are breathing heavily and roaring, surrounded by mystical light and smoke. He clutches his sword, and the 2 wolf-headed creatures look frightened and tense in front of him. With a smile, he attacks 2 aggressive wolf-like creatures that roar and try to defend themselves. A white van drives quickly along an empty road, creating a sense of haste and tension. She was frightened by the approaching car and the two men behind her watched with smiles. He stopped abruptly at the car and, looking tensely ahead, said something loudly, as if warning or ordering. She is worried and says something important, and he listens with tension and sweats. He anxiously asks what is happening, and the other looks away with doubt and remains silent. One fights a huge creature that makes a growl, and two watch and are surprised by what is happening. He fights a huge beast with glowing eyes, delivering a powerful sword blow to its paw. He fights, defending himself with a combat glove, while the other draws his sword from its sheath in preparation for an attack. He and the man in glasses react with anxiety to the unexpected event, expressing surprise and confusion. He watches in amazement as the two men prepare to fight a huge monster that growls and raises its weapons. He says with determination that he wants to test his strength, radiating energy and confidence. The wolf-headed monster raises its weapon to strike, preparing to attack. He furiously delivers a powerful blow, determined to check what happens to him next. He delivers a powerful blow to the huge monster, rising into the air with a long weapon in his hands. A huge creature with an open mouth makes a sound, and three people float in the air amidst explosions and flying debris. He watches as the creature lets out a loud roar and explodes with bright energy, knocking down other enemies around it. He praised the accurate shot as the huge monster roared into the ground next to him. They are both tense and anxious, clearly faced with an unexpected or disturbing situation. He looks intensely at the glowing portal and inwardly agrees with what he has heard. He stands with his back against the background of fire and destruction, creating a tense atmosphere before a possible conflict. He apologizes for what happened earlier, addressing two men, one holding a large sword and the other holding massive bronze gloves. He smiles and laughs as he interacts with another man who responds to him with a smile. He reacts to something with surprise, expressing strong emotions. He speaks anxiously to him while the third watches from behind, noticing the tension in the conversation. He and the man in the suit stare at each other intensely, with the former expressing concern and the latter remaining serious, sweating from the tension. He is silent, immersed in thought against the background of luminous particles. He thinks with a smile that the newcomers are cute, while the two men behind are surprised and look at him. Two men run down the stairs, chasing and attacking several opponents who fall and are injured. It deals a powerful blow to the beast-like creature, which growls back in an attempt to attack. Two men in suits, breathing heavily, discuss whether the opponent is really a low-level player, and one of them asks to stop. He breathes heavily and speaks with tension, expressing fatigue and excitement. Three men emerge from a brightly glowing purple portal in an old building, one of them leading a dog and the other holding a body. Two men in suits look at the third man with surprise and alarm, who turns to them with a serious expression on his face. Two people with weapons stand in the hall, surrounded by armed creatures and watching from the balconies, ready for battle. Three creatures with bows and arrows prepare to attack, focusing on aiming from behind a stone fence in a gloomy room. It deals a powerful blow to an opponent with purple skin, demonstrating determination in battle. Several wolf-like creatures in hoods shoot bows, firing bright energy arrows in a dark room in the rain. Three men attack a large opponent who is screaming in pain, receiving many wounds from bright purple rays. He deflects attacks with glowing swords, and the other standing behind him screams in pain. He looks intensely ahead, the sweat from his face betraying excitement and concentration. He looks intensely to the side and clenches his fist, surrounded by glowing purple lines. He quickly grabbed the object, preparing for action. An anthropomorphic wolf in a hood rushes with a bow, preparing to release an arrow. A warrior in a red cloak delivers a powerful blow, knocking back the enemy, and two creatures with wolf-like features watch the fight. An angry wolf-like character with a bow roars, blood with handprints scattering in the background. He attacks sharply with a club, and the enemy notices that he has stopped shooting with a bow. He attacks a huge orc with a spear, while another falls, and a magic circle with a symbol sparkles in the air. He stabs the green-skinned creature with his sword that tries to grab him with his hand. With a smile and a drop of sweat on his face, he turns back, feeling the tense atmosphere around him. He deals a powerful blow to the purple-skinned creature, which looks at him with fury. With an effort, he releases powerful energy beams from his hands, while simultaneously holding a sword and emitting a sound of pain. With tension and a drop of sweat on his face, he says that he can't let anyone die. With heavy breathing and tension, he prepares for battle, demonstrating strength and determination. A warrior in heavy armor with glowing eyes raises his shield, preparing to attack. The huge creature roars and plummets down, creating a powerful blow. He notices with alarm that something is starting to attack him again. He raises his sword tensely, preparing for a powerful blow. He attacks swiftly, trying to prevent the enemy from connecting with the attack. The image shows a powerful blow, piercing a wall with sparks and cracks. He unexpectedly attacks and hits his opponent with a powerful sword blow, expressing surprise. He turns sharply, noticing something unexpected against the background of rapidly flying fragments. He unleashes a powerful sword strike that destroys surrounding objects and causes a whirlwind around him. Two wolf-like creatures with weapons let out a growl as they watch someone fall, leaving a trail of blood in their wake. He raised his sword and said that it was so, while two beast-like creatures roared and a defeated opponent lay on the floor. He reacts in surprise to the loud roar while she and the two creatures watch the fight on the balcony. In a gloomy hall, dead creatures lie with blood all around, and above them a faint sound is heard, conveying an atmosphere of horror and destruction. The image shows two pairs of boots surrounded by glowing sparks and a rain effect, creating an atmosphere of magic or mysticism. He sat down on the ground next to the sword and said that the timing was perfect. He steps abruptly with his foot, surrounded by glowing energy. With a sword in his hands, he hopes that the kobold did not have foot fungus and laughs at his joke. He looks down with a smile and as if he notices or understands something. Two men in suits sit on the floor of a ruined hall, surrounded by dead werewolves and blood from a fierce battle. He is breathing heavily, sitting on the ground with bloody wounds, and the other, leaning on his sword, is also trying to catch his breath after the fight. He quickly descends the stairs, thinking that everything was much easier than expected. He says with a smile that he loves the effects of the new title, with an almost complete health bar displayed in the background. He opened his eyes abruptly in surprise and let out an exclamation. He stands with a sword, watching for the appearance of a hideous aura, which he says is finally here. He stands in the center of the magic circle, from which a red glow emanates directed towards the bright red door. He looks at the glowing object with surprise and notices that something is happening. He stands in front of a huge mountain of gold and treasure chests and wondering what he is seeing now. He apologizes to everyone, kneeling among the scattered gold coins, and the other asks what it all means and whether it is worth just taking them. He says with glowing eyes that he can do whatever he wants, forgetting about growth and goals, and laughs. He slams the chains with force, letting out a growl, trying to free himself from the shackles. The image shows a bright explosion or flash, with a large orange symbol indicating a sound or action. The image shows a powerful explosion with flying debris and bright flashes of light. He asked if there would be an attack and immediately jumped with his sword on the fire monster with chains and weapons. With a smile, he concentrates on delivering a quick blow, making the sounds of movement. He unexpectedly attacks the creature, which reacts in surprise to his blow. He said with a grin that now everything would become more interesting, expressing confidence and excitement. He and the creature with the bow fall into the fire pit, expressing surprise and pain at the fall. A huge, fiery beast with fangs and chains roars, representing the final boss, the Kobold King Emperor. He was surprised to see the fall of his opponent, who was laughing as he fell into the pit of gold. A huge creature with a metal mask roars as it battles a mechanical opponent against a backdrop of bright, fiery light. He reacts sharply to something, expressing strong surprise or shock. A character with red hair fires a crossbow, causing a powerful explosion that knocks another with a sword to the ground. Someone warns of a great danger coming from a rapidly approaching object or event. He lands abruptly, sword in hand, in front of a huge, dark-armored foe. With a grin and a drop of sweat on his face, he expresses irritation by making a TCH sound. The character with the fiery head and bow expresses irritation and growls, calling the situation annoying. He exclaimed in surprise as he saw a bright red portal suddenly open in front of them. The two are running away from a huge creature with glowing eyes and sharp teeth, noticing it suddenly. Two men in suits with badges look anxious and tense, making loud noises expressing shock and anxiety. Two men standing in front of a huge fire dragon, preparing to fight it. He screams in horror, expressing intense fear and shock. He sharply focused his gaze, expressing great surprise and tension. He leaps into a whirlwind of energy, aiming a blow at a huge creature with a bright red face and an evil look. With a bright expression on his face, he says something with confidence and energy, surrounded by a glowing effect. The image shows a bright burst of light and the effect of using the skill, accompanied by a sound effect. The character with a fiery head roars and attacks rapidly, demonstrating aggression and strength. He delivers a powerful sword blow to an enemy with a fiery head who is wounded and flies back. The Kobold King roars and deals a powerful blow, but due to the resistance to the Demon Bash skill, the effect does not trigger. He smiles and sweats intensely, preparing for the upcoming event. He turns sharply, as if noticing something important, against the background of a blurred road with lines of traffic. Two men with badges hurry, one holding a katana to express determination, and the other following him intently. He resolutely jumps with the sword, thinking that this time he will definitely get what he wants, and the other reacts with surprise to his attack. Dark tentacles and flying magical arrows surround the creature with a fiery mane, creating a tense and dangerous atmosphere. He is sharply concentrated and prepares for action, looking intensely ahead. Two fight, one releases many energy beams and the other reflects them, creating a bright explosion. With a smile, he delivers a powerful sword blow surrounded by energy, showing confidence and tension. He jumps upwards sharply, trying to attack an opponent who is watching him from the ground. A dark creature with a fiery head and chains on its body releases 4 swords from its back, surrounded by purple energy. He thinks that this monster is different from all he has met before, but the presence of endless arrows seems crazy to him. He stands with 2 arrows in his back against a background of blood-red light, making an ominous sound. He intensely thinks that everything could be simpler. Sword in hand, he noticed something in surprise as he stood in front of a pile of gold coins on the ground. 2 men in suits on their knees, one holding a mask, the other putting his hand on his sword, preparing for action. The 2 watch as a fierce battle takes place in the sky between 2 opponents, exchanging powerful energy attacks. On the ground, you can see arrows dug in and many gold coins falling from the sky, creating a contrast between destruction and wealth. In a panic, he realized that he should have noticed something earlier, expressing great frustration and surprise. He jumps with a huge sword over the mountain of gold, heading for the chest standing at the edge. He abruptly steps on the ground, creating a feeling of strength and determination. He suddenly notices that a lot of gold coins are spilling out of his body, expressing surprise. He smiles maliciously, showing sharp teeth, expressing anger or threat. He watches as another caped character unleashes a powerful blast of energy in his direction. A dark figure with bright eyes roars and delivers a powerful blow, causing an explosion and a bright flash. He is shocked and tense as gold coins fly around him. It abruptly bounces off the flow of gold coins, creating a powerful explosion of energy around it. A dark, fire-breathing monster with a fluttering cloak falls into a mountain of gold coins, and a man next to him dodges the blow. An angry beast with glowing eyes and sharp teeth roars, surrounded by falling gold coins. He stares forward with fury and tension, surrounded by falling coins and flashes of fire. He thrusts his sword into the ground with force, causing gold coins to explode and emit bright energy. Due to the sacrifice effect, the incoming attack was cancelled and his health was restored. Coins crash and crumble to the ground, creating an explosion effect. He activated the psychedelic skill, which made his body stronger and faster. He strikes sharply with his weapon, causing a bright flash and a tense atmosphere of battle. The image shows the effect of the knockback burst ability, with bright green and yellow bursts of energy. With a sword in his hands, he rushes at a huge demon surrounded by gold coins and fire. A huge monster with an open mouth spews fire. Gold coins fly around it, and the sounds of explosions are heard. 2 men in suits react tensely to what is happening. One of them expresses anxiety and says something important. He looks up with tension and surprise, sweating and with a smile on his face. He is surrounded by gold coins and energy, and someone remarks that they have never seen a player with such a high combat sense, to which he responds with an interested sound. A huge monster with burning hair roars, and the man is silent, looking at him with tension. A huge creature with a fiery head breathes heavily, covered in wounds and blood, demonstrating its strength and fatigue. He smiles with sinister confidence, surrounded by sparkling red lightning. He prepares to attack with a smile, holding a huge sword surrounded by dark energy and falling coins. The beast, with a brightly glowing eye and sharp teeth, emits a loud roar, expressing rage and aggression. He fights the huge creature with a powerful sword strike surrounded by energy and sparks. The image shows the moment of the attack with a fire effect and a bright blue eye that captures what is happening. He plunges his sword into the enemy with force, causing a powerful explosion and flying sparks. A message appears on the screen, congratulating you for defeating the Kobold King. A fire-breathing dragon with a metal jaw spews flames, preparing to attack in a dark room. He was surprised to notice that he had leveled up while holding a large sword in his hands and feeling a change in himself. The title, Before the Drink Goes Cold, appears on the screen, with the description that after entering the dungeon, all players receive the status of Overwhelm Immunity for 2 hours. He tells with a smile that the owner of the beautiful beard boasted that in his best years, he managed to fight enemies before his drink cooled down. He turned around with a smile, holding the sword behind his back against the glowing blue glow. He exclaimed that he had found something powerful by showing a glowing talisman among the scattered coins and objects. On his knees, he studies the glowing amulet he holds in his hand. Shoes and a leaf lie next to him. He noticed something behind him and reacted in surprise. He warns with a sword that if anyone gets close, he will kill while the two watch him from behind. He looks around warily when he hears strange noises around him. He smiles nervously and sighs, clearly experiencing discomfort or tension in the situation. He looks in amazement at the mountain of gold and jewels that shine in front of him with a bright light. Someone asks in surprise about the meaning of all this treasure, surrounded by gold, swords, and jewels. He yells that he can't leave it all behind, as the two try to pull him out through the glowing portal, telling him to leave. The crowd watches a huge glowing portal, and one man runs towards a woman who has fallen on the road. Two men are surrounded by a bright purple light, one of them holding a powerful energy weapon in his hands. He jokes with a bandage on his cheek. The girl smiles, and the other, sweating, confesses his love for Shin Sang-hyun. He explained that it was not easy, she was surprised, and the other man, tired, put his hand on his forehead. All three were tense and sweating. He asks Sang-hyun to surrender, and Sang-hyun, clutching the jewelry in his hands, looks depressed as the third person watches them. He looks at the object in front of him with surprise and expresses bewilderment. He happily says the word magazine with a microphone, addressing another man, while a scene with a boom microphone is filmed in the background. He smiles and asks what exactly the interlocutor wants to say. He laughs nervously, trying to hide his excitement, holding a piece of paper in his hands. She points her hand at the stone creature surrounded by electrical discharges, preparing to attack them. She reports with a staff that the golems have all been summoned and prepares for the next action. She stands with a sword in her hand while two stone giants attack her with powerful blows. She is silently concentrated, radiating intense energy in a moment of silence. She swiftly attacks the stone giant with 2 daggers, striking swiftly at his arm. She deals a powerful blow to the stone enemy, destroying his body into pieces. He said, "Gee?" in amazement as he looked at the stone giant with glowing eyes. With an effort, she snatches her sword from its scabbard, expressing relief. He grips the hilt of his sword with determination, preparing for action. She plummets down, surrounded by glittering lines, while the stone creatures fall beside her as well. He delivers a powerful blow sharply, accompanied by a loud sound that emphasizes the power of the action. The image shows the spectacular sound of a blow or collision accompanying a dynamic action with no visible characters. He delivers a powerful blow with his sword, shattering the boulders around him. One woman with a knife notices falling stones, and the other with a staff expresses surprise. She reacts calmly with a staff, and the other looks at her with surprise and a drop of sweat on her face. She fights the enemy with a powerful blow, and in the foreground, another character watches the fight with indifference. He looks at the man in the suit on the screen, which suddenly interrupts and expresses surprise. She stands with a knife in her hand against the background of stones and a tense atmosphere. She looks up thoughtfully, as if thinking about something important. He answers the question about the possibility of passing the rift without losses, standing in the rain with a sword on his back. She said that there was no need to worry while another woman with a staff was watching her from behind. He is a little nervous and smiling when he is among a group of people who are looking at him intently. With a slight smile and a drop of sweat on his face, he says something against the background of a pink glow. He looks with interest at a holographic screen depicting a rainy street and passers-by. She stands with a curved sword in her hand, ready to fight in an empty room with yellow and black warning stripes on the walls. He whispers softly, creating a tense atmosphere. A dark figure with horns and glowing eyes appears surrounded by glowing lines, creating an ominous atmosphere of menace. She stands with a knife in her hand and muses that perhaps he made a contract with a god, just like she did. He sits on the floor in the room, glowing streams of energy swirling around him, emanating from objects on the rug in front of him. He is silent, surrounded by sparkling energy and glowing white hair against a dark background. He concentrates on controlling the glowing blue energies emanating from his hands. He asked with relief if the time had finally come, against the backdrop of radiant energy currents and the title, Gap in Consciousness. He smiles with confidence, surrounded by radiance and glowing sparks. He clenches his fists with force, expressing power, muscle, and strength. The man is suddenly grabbed by tentacles, and he tries to break free from the grip in horror. He is shocked by the blow and asks about the strength when he receives another kick. He stands under the bloody tentacles and looks forward with a cold expression on his face. He sits on the ground with a frightened expression, while the other stands with a bloody sword, displaying improved evasiveness instead of defense. The image shows a close-up of the creature with a cross on its eye, and the text states that it focused on skills with high utility rather than strength. He looks with a serious expression, intensely aware of what is happening. He holds back his excitement by sweating and looking forward with tension. He noticed something unexpected and was surprised. The image shows a shining bowl of mushroom soup from a fresh kobold forest, surrounded by magical light. The image shows a juicy black pepper steak drizzled with sauce, with a caption stating its origins from the intense kobold plains. He smiles with a drop of saliva, surrounded by luminous lines and sparks, creating a sense of magic or energy around him. He smiles with a slight anxiety. Strange luminous spirals and lines appear around him. The image shows a mysterious object with black and purple spirals hovering above a light surface in a dark space. He stands in front of 2 plates of food and looks confused, not knowing what to choose. The image shows a plate with seasoned orange maggots from a fresh kobold swamp. A white SUV with the inscription Rain Lovers rushes down the city street at high speed. He speaks happily while sitting in the car and wearing a seatbelt. He is surprised with a sword in the subway, and those around him consider him annoying. He suddenly notices a call on the phone with a call from Kim Ji-hae from the Players Association. He sits on the floor among the broken wooden targets, breathing heavily and holding a weapon in his hand after training. He said with a smile that he craves action, expressing impatience and excitement. At the intersection, 2 men are regulating traffic, and one of them asks, "Is this?" He stands on the road with a red rod and asks passers-by to pass by. He looks annoyed and worried at the wheel, with a bead of sweat on his face and clenched hands on the steering wheel. He looks ahead in surprise, his eyes wide in shock. He expresses surprise and bewilderment, which can be seen from his open lips and exclamation marks. He stands in the center, surrounded by journalists and cameramen who interview him against the background of a bright, glowing portal. She holds the microphone and puts her hand on the shoulder of the man, who looks at her with a serious expression. He smiles with a slight awkwardness, sweating, as if trying to hide excitement or embarrassment. A group of people and a film crew gathered around a large, glowing blue portal that appeared in the middle of an intersection in the city. A woman with a microphone and a cameraman film a crowd of fans who are shouting and asking them to look in their direction at least once. She smiles and says something with confidence and goodwill. The journalist was surprised when he began to speak, and another man silently watched them from behind. She laughs nervously, and he looks forward with tension, holding his weapon at the ready. He calmly stated that this was all ending the conversation. She looks to the side and starts talking, but the words are not visible in the image. A woman with a microphone looks forward in love, and a cameraman with a camera looks embarrassed and sweating. He turned abruptly, noticing something unexpected. He looked out of the window of the car, which was speeding down the road, intently watching what was happening ahead. He was surprised and asked if someone had come to spy on Do Kyung-soo. He realized that he had made a mistake due to inattention, and now his face was also known. The crowd discusses the event, the meeting between God and man, while the camera and the journalist film two men standing against a light background. He says that if there is no result, he will have to take extreme measures, addressing the interlocutor with a serious expression on his face. He replied that his arrival here was a coincidence, while a journalist asked if he had really come that far away. He doubtfully says that he will choose the full option despite the uncertainty. Two men and a woman are interviewed at a pedestrian crossing. They are filmed by cameramen and a sound engineer against the background of passers-by. He looks forward with a confident smile on a light background, radiating a mysterious and strong energy. He asks if this is a complete challenge or a one-time event, while touching his neck with his hand. He looks intensely to the side, a drop of sweat dripping down his cheek, expressing anxiety. Two men stand opposite each other. A powerful blue energy flow appears between them. He reflects on how far he still has to go. He is standing next to a man in a long coat who is saying something with his hands in his pockets and looking down. He looks with a sly smile, radiating confidence and hidden threat in the dark blue light. He stands in suspense, aware that he is perceived as an obstacle to be overcome. The man goes into the glowing portal, and the other asks him to wait. The image shows a glowing blue glow with sparks and smoke emanating from the surface, with no visible characters. A glowing portal appeared on the bridge, radiating powerful energy and attracting attention. The image shows the foot of a person getting out of a car, with no visible characters or dialogue. He is standing by a white SUV, leaning against the door, with a sword on his back and a focused gaze as if preparing for an important event. He confidently promised to catch up with his opponent at a terrifying speed, surrounded by a purple aura of energy. He opened his eyes abruptly, clearly surprised or frightened. She tries to calm the worried girl, and the man watches them anxiously. The green-haired woman called out to Shin Sang-yun, and he replied that he had come just in time. She yells at the man, while the other woman watches them with a serious expression on her face. He looks anxious and sweats, as if faced with an unexpected or difficult situation. Today is the day when his younger sister died in the Silent Land, is shown through the image of a locket with her photo. She loudly demands attention, asking if anyone can hear her. She turned to him with a smile, and he listened to her with bewilderment and a drop of sweat on his face. She speaks loudly to Mr. Sang-yun, trying to get his attention. He looks at her with a serious expression, and she, holding her sword, is surprised. He thinks that sometimes you need to be decisive. She said with surprise and anxiety, "What?" He said he was busy, and the woman replied in the affirmative, while the other watched them in amazement. He looks on with irritation as the three behind him try to hit him and express anger. He complained that he should have just rested today and expressed irritation at the situation. Against the backdrop of gloomy ruins and dark skies, sound can be heard, creating a tense atmosphere. He can hardly breathe, pinching his nose, and makes the sound of pain. He slammed his foot sharply on the ground, causing flashes and cracks on the surface. He stands with his mouth closed as dark-clawed hands rise from under his feet and destroy the ground around him. He kicks a monster with huge teeth that makes a high-pitched creaking sound. He delivers a powerful kick, creating a strong effect of movement and tension. He gained the silence effect from the ghoul's attack and cannot use skills for 0.5 seconds. He abruptly raises his heavy weapon, preparing to attack. He thrusts his sword into the ground with such force that shards and blood splatters fly out from under the blow. He stands with a sword, preparing to attack, while vicious creatures swiftly approach him. He plunges his sword into the ground, surrounded by aggressive creatures with claws and teeth ready to attack. He prepares to attack with a smile, clutching his sword while the black claws seek to grab him.